When Arjuna had finished, the excitement of the crowd had died down. There then appeared at the gate of the arena a personality effulgent like the sun. Struck, not knowing who this celestial person was, Drona, as well as the 5 Pandavas, stood to receive him. He was actually Karna, the firstborn child of Kunti before her marriage to Pandu. He was the son of the sun god Vivaswan and was endowed with his power. He wore natural golden mail from birth, and beautiful earrings glittered on his face. The spectators talked amongst themselves about the unknown person whose effulgence was spreading in all directions. Karna offered his obeisances to the preceptors Kripa and Drona, and then spoke to Partha. "I shall perform feats before this crowd that will excel yours. You will be amazed to behold them." On hearing these words, Duryodhana was delighted, and his affection for this unknown warrior increased when he saw the rivalry between he and Arjuna. He introduced himself to all present, and then with the permission of Drona, the mighty Karna accomplished all that Arjuna had accomplished. Witnessing the super-excellence of this great warrior, Duryodhana and his followers embraced Karna, saying, "Welcome, O mighty armed warrior. I have obtained you as my friend by good fortune. Live as you please in the kingdom of the Kurus." Arjuna welcomed the competition of Karna and addressed him with challenging words. "Exhibit the weapons you have learned from your preceptor. I shall counter all of them, and prove my superiority with the bow and arrow. Stand and prepare to fight." Karna replied, "This arena is meant for all, not for you alone, O Falgun. Why do you speak with words only? O Bard, you may release your arrows till I strike off your head before the great Drona himself." Encouraged by his brothers, Partha, with the permission of Drona, advanced for combat. On the other side, Karna, having been embraced by Duryodhana, took up his bow and arrows and stood ready for a fight. Indra shaded his son Arjuna with many clouds, and the sun god Vivaswan dispersed the clouds from above the head of his son Karna. Understanding that a fatal competition was about to take place, Kunti fainted to the ground. She was brought back to consciousness by Vidura. When she saw her 2 sons dressed in armor, she was seized with fear. Kripa, the son of Saradwat, who was conversant with the rules of fighting, addressed Karna, saying, "This Pandava, the youngest son of Kunti, belongs to the Kaurava race. He will engage in combat with you. But, O mighty armed one, you must also announce the royal dynasty to which you belong. Upon hearing this, Partha will fight with you as he sees fit. Sons of kings never fight with men of lower castes." When he was thus addressed by Kripa, Karna's vanity disappeared like a lotus flower during the rainy season. Rising up from his seat, Duryodhana hastily said, "O Kripa, the scriptures say that there are 3 classes of persons who lay claim to royalty: persons of royal blood, heroes, and lastly those who lead armies. If Falgun is unwilling to fight with one who is not a king, I will install Karna as the king of the Angas." At that time Duryodhana called for a golden throne, and sitting Karna on it, installed him as the king of the Angas. This was done under the direction of the Brahmanas, who were well versed in Vedic mantras. He was fanned with yak tails, and the royal umbrella was held over his head. The crowd loudly applauded and signaled their approval. Feeling grateful to Duryodhana, Karna said, "O tiger among men, what shall I give you that can compare to this gift? I will follow your instructions and become your faithful friend." And Duryodhana said to Karna, "I am eager for your friendship also." Thus the 2 embraced. This was the beginning of a strong bond of friendship that would destroy the Kuru dynasty. At that time, Adivath, the foster father of Karna, entered the arena. He embraced his son, and tears of joy wetted his son's head. Bhimasena thought Karna to be the son of a charioteer, and thus addressed him, "O Sutta, do you want your death in the fight at the hands of Partha? You are not worthy to rule over the kingdom of Anga any more than a dog deserves butter from the sacrificial arena." Hearing these words, Duryodhana rose up in anger and addressed Bhimasena. "You should not speak such words. Heroism and courage in battle are the symptoms of a Kshatriya, and even a Kshatriya of inferior birth should be fought with. Can a she-deer bring forth a tiger like Karna? Can this warrior who resembles a demigod, born with natural golden mail and earrings, be the son of a chariot driver? This prince among men deserves the sovereignty of the 3 worlds. If there is anyone who cannot tolerate all that I have done for Karna, let him ascend the chariot and string his bow." There were mixed feelings in the crowd upon hearing the words of Duryodhana. The sun, however, set on the horizon, signaling the end of the day's activities. Some thought Arjuna to be the victor of the day, and others thought Karna to be the victor. And Kunti, recognizing her son by various auspicious marks, was pleased to see that her eldest son was alive and faring well. Upon seeing the prowess of Karna, Yudhisthira was convinced that there was no warrior on earth who could equal his bowmanship. Thus ends Chapter 9 of the Adi Parva to the summary study of the Mahabharata entitled The Tournament. Chapter 10 of the Adi Parva, Dakshin for Drona. Drona saw that all his students had become expert in the use of arms, and that it was time to ask for Dakshin from them. One day he assembled them together and ordered them, "Capture Drupad, the king of the Panchalas, in battle, and bring him to me. This will be the suitable payment for my teaching." All the students readily agreed and mounted their chariots to accomplish all that their martial teacher wanted. Drona followed them. As the Kurus approached Drupad's capital, they laid siege to it. The army was led by Duryodhana, Karna, Yuyutsu, Dushashan, and Vikarna. They competed with one another to capture Drupad first. Drupad, not tolerating the attack of the Kurus on his kingdom, mounted his chariot along with his brothers and met the Kuru army head-on. Before the battle started, Arjuna saw the vanity of Duryodhana and his brothers and spoke to Drona. "We shall hold back from the fight until Duryodhana has displayed his prowess. The king of the Panchalas can never be taken on the field of battle by any of these warriors." Having said this, Arjuna, surrounded by his brothers, waited outside the town about a mile away. Meanwhile, Drupad, beholding the Kuru army, rushed forward, releasing hundreds of arrows from his powerful bow. The Kuru ranks were so afflicted that they thought that there were many Drupads opposed to them. There arose from the Panchala army a war cry that shook the heavens. Duryodhana, along with his brothers, became furious and began to shower their arrows upon the enemy. But the mighty bowman Drupad was not affected and began killing the enemy with greater vigor. He challenged Duryodhana, Vikarna, and Karna and set them running from the battlefield. The arrows from the Panchala army began to rain upon the army of the Kurus, breaking their ranks and causing them to flee for their very lives. The Pandavas, seeing the fun, offered their obeisances to Drona and mounted their chariots. Arjuna asked Yudhisthira to stay in the background and appointed the sons of Madri as the protectors of his chariot wheels. Bhimasena, mace in hand, rushed into the center of the army. He headed for the elephant army and began to destroy those huge beasts with a single blow from his powerful club. The elephants screamed and fell to the ground, their heads broken to pieces. Bhima, with his invincible club, began to destroy chariots, horses, infantrymen, and elephants. As a cowherd man controls countless cows with his staff, so Bhimasena controlled the army of Drupad with his fierce club. Meanwhile, Falgun, wanting to please his martial teacher, attacked Drupad with a shower of arrows and caused him to fall from the elephant on which he was riding. Arjuna then killed with his arrows elephants, men, horses, and chariots in thousands. The Panchala army met Arjuna head-on with a perfect shower of arrows, and sending up a loud shout, fought desperately with him. The battle became furious and terrible to behold. The son of Indra was filled with anger and released thousands of arrows for the destruction of the Panchala army. Those who were watching Arjuna could not see any interval between his fixing the arrows on the bowstring and releasing them. The king of the Panchalas, accompanied by his commander-in-chief, Satyajit, rushed at Arjuna with the speed of the wind. Arjuna covered the king of the Panchalas with hundreds of arrows. Partha then rushed at Drupad to capture him. Seeing him coming forward, Satyajit tried to stop him. As the two warriors approached each other for combat, they began to destroy each other's army. Suddenly, Arjuna pierced Satyajit in the chest with 10 arrows, but Satyajit released 100 arrows at the son of Pandu. Arjuna, not wanting to waste any more time, released an arrow that cut the bow of Satyajit in two. Taking up another bow, the commander-in-chief of the Panchalas attacked Arjuna again. This time, Arjuna cut the bow, smashed the chariot, killed the horses, and his charioteer. When Satyajit found his bows useless and his horses slain, he desisted from fighting. Seeing his general defeated, the king of the Panchalas began to shower his arrows upon the Pandava prince. Arjuna immediately cut the bow of Drupad and pierced his chariot driver with 5 arrows. Setting aside his bow, Arjuna took out his scimitar and, sending forth a loud shout, jumped from his chariot to the chariot of Drupad. He seized Drupad as Garuda would seize a snake, and at the sight of this the Panchala army fled the field of battle. Thus Janamejaya, Arjuna, having exhibited the strength of his arms, set up a loud roar and made his way from the battlefield to the presence of Drona. He asked Bhima to desist from any further slaughter, as the Panchalas were related to the Kurus. Bhimasena was unsatiated in battle, but agreed to Arjuna's proposal and took the king of the Panchalas to Drona. And Drona, seeing Drupad brought under complete control, remembered how Drupad had formerly humiliated him in his court. He addressed him, "Your kingdom and capital have been seized by me. You need not fear for your life. I once again desire your friendship, O mighty warrior. Previously told me that only one who was a king could be a king's friend. I therefore will give you half the kingdom south of the Bhagirati, and I shall rule over the land north of that river. And if it pleases you, I ask again for your friendship." On hearing these words, Drupad replied, "You are a greatly powerful Brahmana, and your prowess is beyond that of a Kshatriya. Therefore, O Brahmana, I am not surprised at what you have accomplished. I am very satisfied with you and desire your eternal friendship." Drona then released Drupad, and the king of the Panchalas from that day on resided in the city of Kampilya in the province of Makandi on the banks of the Ganges. Drupad was convinced that by Kshatriya strength alone he could not defeat Drona. He began to wander the earth for a means of obtaining a son who could kill Drona, and also a daughter who would be a suitable wife for Arjuna. Drupad was so impressed with Arjuna that he thought that there was no warrior comparable to him on earth. Therefore, by means of marriage, he wanted to unite the two families. Thus ends the 10th chapter of the Adi Parva to the summary study of the Mahabharata entitled Dakshin for Drona. Chapter 11 of the Adi Parva, The House of Lac at Varanavata. When a year after this incident had passed, Dhritarashtra decided to install Yudhisthira, the son of Pandu, as the heir apparent to the kingship of the world. His firmness, fortitude, patience, benevolence, straightforwardness, and unswerving honesty won the hearts of the people of the earth. Within a short time he had overshadowed the accomplishments of his father, the great Pandu. The second son of Pandu, Bhimasena, began to receive lessons from Balaram, the brother of the personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. He received continued lessons in the use of mace and sword. After Bhima's education was finished, his strength and prowess was unsurpassed except for the all-powerful Lord Balaram. Arjuna, the third son of Pandu, was celebrated all over the world for his expertise in the use of the bow and arrow. Drona certified that there was none in the world who was equal to Arjuna in the use of weapons. Sahadeva obtained the whole science of morality and duties from Brihaspati, the heavenly priest of the demigods, and Nakula, the favorite of his brothers, became known as a skillful warrior and a great chariot fighter. Indeed, Arjuna and the other Pandavas became so powerful that they killed in battle the great Sovira, who was powerful due to the performance of sacrifice to the demigods. The king of the Yavanas, whom Pandava had failed to bring under his control, was conquered by the mighty bow of Arjuna. While riding on a single chariot, Arjuna and Bhima conquered the kings of the east, backed by 10,000 chariots. The 5 Pandavas conquered all the kings of the earth and extended their influence to all parts of Bharatvarsha. Seeing the great prowess of the sons of Pandu, Dhritarashtra's sentiments toward the sons of his brother suddenly changed. The blind king, who was also blind spiritually, was overcome with envy and began to plot to kill the Pandavas. Dhritarashtra called to his side one of his chief ministers, who was expert in the art of politics, and said, "O best of the Brahmanas, Kanika, the Pandavas are daily growing in power and influence. I am envious of them. Tell me whether I should make peace or war with them. I will act on the advice that you give me." Kanika, who was crooked by nature, then spoke to the blind king, who was intent on sovereignty for his own sons. Listen to my words, O sinless king, and do not be angry with me. If your son, friend, brother, father, or even the spiritual preceptor, anyone who becomes your enemy, should be killed by all means. By curses and mystic power, by gift of wealth, by poison or fire, or by deception, the enemy should be slain. To maintain the interest of the Kurus in your own self, you should not let the enemy know what you are thinking. Comfort the enemy with sweet words, give him a gift of wealth, and then kill him when he is not looking. You should burn the house of the person you wish to kill. You should act with the greatest cruelty, and sharpen your teeth to inflict the greatest pain. You should strike him in such a way that he will never raise his head again. O king, protect yourself from the sons of Pandu, for they are stronger than your own sons. Act in such a way that there will not be any fear from the sons of your brother. The so-called Brahmana Kanika then returned to his own chambers, and the king became contemplative about all that had been said. The citizens of Hastinapur became attached to the sons of Pandu because of their good qualities, and desired Yudhisthira as their king. In the marketplaces, in the homes, in the countrysides, the glories of the Pandavas were spoken. The sinful Duryodhana, hearing the words of the citizens, became distressed. Inflamed with envy, he went to Dhritarashtra and spoke the following words. O father, I have heard the words of the citizens favoring the Pandavas. They desire Yudhisthira to rule the kingdom. What then will be our fate? If Yudhisthira does indeed become king, ourselves and our children shall be excluded from the royal line. We should act quickly so that the kingdom shall be ours and the people will be favorable to us. Overcome by affection for his sinful son, Dhritarashtra made a plot to kill the Pandavas by fire in the town of Varnavata. One day in the court at Hastinapur, some of the king's counselors began to speak of the glories of Varnavata. These counselors, instructed by Dhritarashtra, spoke of the beauty of the town and of the pious citizens. Hearing these descriptions, the Pandavas became attracted to go there. Dhritarashtra noticed that the curiosity of the Pandavas had been awakened, and he then spoke to them. These counselors of mine speak of Varnavata and the activities that go on there. If you desire to witness the festivities in this beautiful town, then take your followers and friends and enjoy yourselves. Give away charity to the Brahmanas and the citizens, and after living comfortably for some time, return to the city of Hastinapur. Yudhisthira fully understood the motives of his blind uncle, but because he was in a helpless condition, he had to agree to the proposal. He took permission from the leaders of the Kuru dynasty and prepared to leave for Varnavata. Previously, Duryodhana had summoned his counselor Parochana and spoken to him in the following words. O Parochana, this world is destined to be mine, and you can share in it equally. It is in our best interest to protect it. I have no more trustworthy counselor than you to consult with. Therefore help me to kill my enemy by doing what I ask. My father will request the Pandavas to go to Varnavata to enjoy the festivities there. I want you to construct a palace made of flammable materials. It should be constructed in such a way as to deceive the Pandavas. Soak the walls with ghee, resin, oil, and a large quantity of shellac. Do it in such a way that they will not think it flammable. Make sure the palace is of the finest workmanship, and with the greatest humility request the Pandavas to live there. On a certain day chosen by me, you will burn the palace of lac while the Pandavas, along with their mother, are sleeping. Agreeing to all the proposals of Duryodhana, the sinful Parochana went to Varnavata and did all that he was told. As the Pandavas and their mother were leaving Hastinapur, Vidura approached Yudhisthira and spoke to him in a Malacha language that no one else could understand. Vidura lovingly said to him, "One who knows the schemes of his enemy should act in such a way as to avoid all danger. He who knows that there are sharp weapons capable of cutting the body which are not made of steel, and understands the means of avoiding them, can never be harmed. One who knows that the consumer of straw and wood and the dryer of dew never burns the inmates of a hole in the forest, lives to see another day. Remembering this, be on guard. One who is given a weapon by his foes that is not made of steel can escape from his enemies by making his abode like unto the jackal, one who lives underground. By wandering a man can acquire certain knowledge, and by the stars he can ascertain direction, and he that keeps his senses under control can never be oppressed by his enemies." When spoken to in these words, Yudhisthira replied, "I have understood you." Vidura then bid them farewell and returned to his own house. When Vidura had left, Kunti approached Yudhisthira and inquired, "What did the pious Vidura say to you? He spoke in such a way that no one could understand him. If it is not improper for us to know, then I should like to hear everything that he has said." Yudhisthira replied, "The pious Vidura has told me that the palace in which we are to live is built of flammable materials. He further said the path of escape will be known to us, and that he who has controlled his senses can acquire sovereignty of the world. The reply that I gave to him was, 'I have understood you.'" The Pandavas had set out on the 8th day of the waning moon in the month of Falgun, when the star Rohini was in ascendant. Upon arriving in the city of Varnavata, the townspeople came to greet them. The assembly consisted of many thousands of people who were anxious to see the pious Pandavas. The sons of Pandu were presented many auspicious articles and taken on a tour of the town. The sinful Purochana then took them to a palace made of lac. The foremost of all virtuous men, Yudhisthira, upon inspecting the palace, said to Bhima, "O chastiser of the enemy, this house is truly made of burnable materials. The enemy, by aid of trusted artisans, has built this house with hemp, resin, straw, and bamboos, all soaked in ghee. The wicked Purochana is staying in the palace with us to burn us to death when we are not expecting it. Our well-wishing uncle Vidura has warned me that Duryodhana has had this house constructed for our death." Hearing this, Bhima replied, "If this is the fact, then we should live in another house in Varnavata." Yudhisthira said, "It seems to me that we should continue living here seemingly unsuspicious. However, we should always be on guard and know all means of escape. If Purochana has found out that we have understood his plans, he may try to burn the house immediately. If we leave here, Duryodhana may try to have us killed by spies. While we have no rank and power, Duryodhana has both. We also have no friends and allies, and Duryodhana has both. While we have no wealth, Duryodhana has a full treasury. Duryodhana should think that we have died by fire. Deceiving him in this way, we shall escape from here when the time is right." After some time, a friend of Vidura's, well skilled in mining, arrived at the palace of the Pandavas. In private, he talked to Yudhisthira. "I have been sent by Vidura, and I am a skillful miner. Purochana will set fire to the palace on the 14th day of the dark moon. This is all the plan of the wicked Duryodhana. Previously, Vidura instructed you in the Lecha language, and you replied to him in the same language. I am saying this so you will know that I am actually acting on Vidura's behalf." Vidura replied to the miner, "I know you as a trusted friend of our uncle Vidura. This large mansion has been built of flammable materials, and there are few doors. I want you to build a large tunnel beginning from the center of the house and ending by the river Jamuna. We will spend our days hunting in the forest so that the sinful Purochana will not detect that you are working. Make sure the floor is covered well so that no one will suspect that there is a tunnel." On hearing these instructions, the miner agreed, and the next day he began his work. Every day the Pandavas would go to the forest accompanied by Purochana, and they seemed very happy to be under Purochana's care. Thus they lived in that palace for 1 full year. Seeing the Pandavas living in the palace cheerfully and without any suspicion, Purochana felt satisfied. And beholding Purochana in a happy mood, Yudhisthira, the pious son of Kunti, spoke to his brothers as follows. "The cruel-hearted Purochana has been well deceived. I think the time has come for our escape. Let us set fire to the mansion and burn Purochana to death. Then we shall leave here unobserved by all." Yudhisthira planned a festival in the palace of Lac and invited many of the leading citizens of Varnavata. At the end of the night all had left, and Purochana had become drunk with wine, so much so that he laid on the floor unconscious. It so happened that on that occasion a Nishita woman and her 5 sons had come to the festival in hopes of receiving charity. They also became drunk and laid on the floor unable to move. When all had left the house, it was late at night, and suddenly a violent wind began to blow outside. Yudhisthira ordered Bhima to set fire to the house. Bhima first of all set fire to the place where Purochana was sleeping, and then to the other parts of the house. Soon the whole mansion was ablaze, and the Pandavas along with their mother escaped through the tunnel made by the miner. They came out near the bank of the Jamuna, and in the distance, as they looked back, they could see the palace of Lak high in flames. The heat of the fire became intense and awakened the townspeople. Seeing the house ablaze, the citizens with sorrowful faces began to say, "The wicked Parochana, under the direction of Duryodhana, has built this death house. Oh, to hell with Dhritarashtra, who has such a wicked heart. He has burnt to death the sinless sons of Pandu." The citizens thus lamented the loss of the Pandavas and waited the whole night until the flames died down. They extinguished the fire and searched through the ashes. They then found the burnt body of Parochana and the bodies of Anishita woman and her 5 sons. The people began to cry, saying, "Indeed, this is the plan of the evil Duryodhana. By his wickedness he has brought about the destruction of the Pandavas. There is little doubt about that Duryodhana has, with Dhritarashtra's permission, burnt to death the heirs of Pandu. Let us send a message to Dhritarashtra saying, 'Your desire has been achieved. You have burnt to death the sinless Pandavas.'" Upon receiving news of the so-called death of the Pandavas, Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana were glad at heart, but expressed great unhappiness. They arranged for the last funeral rites of the Pandavas, and Lord Krishna himself attended the ceremony. Neither Vidura nor Lord Krishna were in lamentation, because they knew that the Pandavas, along with their mother, were happy and alive. The sinful Duryodhana felt fully satisfied, and in due course of time began to rule the kingdom under the direction of his father Dhritarashtra. Thus ends Chapter 11 of the Adi Parva to the summary study of the Mahabharata entitled, "The House of Lak at Varnavata." Chapter 12 of the Adi Parva, the killing of the Rakshasa Hidimva. While the palace of Shalak was burning intensely, the Pandavas escaped unnoticed. Upon leaving the tunnel, they saw the palace of Shalak burning in the distance. They then looked toward the bank of the Ganges and saw a man sitting in a boat. The man was sent by Vidura, and by signals he indicated that they should board the boat. He convinced them by certain messages that he was sent by their uncle. Taking them across the river Ganges, he led them to safety. They thanked the boatmen and sent a message back to Vidura that they were heading in a southerly direction. Then Bhimasena, endowed with great strength, placed his mother on his shoulders, the twins on his sides, Yudhisthira and Arjuna on his arms, and proceeded quickly through the darkness. The son of the wind god ran at the speed of the wind, breaking before him the trees and bushes. With every step he caused the earth to tremble. The motion of his thighs created a wind so intense that it was comparable to the winds in the month of March. Indeed, so great was the force with which Bhima moved that his brothers and mother seemed to faint on his body. Before the day was over, Bhima had covered a distance of 160 miles. Towards the evening, Bhima reached the densely dark forest where the fruits and water were scarce, and which echoed the terrible cries of birds and beasts. The wind blew strongly, breaking the branches of the trees. Afflicted with hunger, thirst, and sleep, they were unable to proceed further. They all lay down to sleep, while Bhima stayed awake to guard against any spies sent by Duryodhana, or any Rakshasas in the forest. As Bhima glanced over his mother and his brothers, he felt a deep pain in his heart. After all, wasn't it just a night ago that they were sleeping in the finest of beds and eating the finest foods? Did Queen Kunti, the wife of the great Pandu and daughter of Shirasena, deserve to lie on the bare ground? Did the sister of Vasudeva and mother of the great Pandavas deserve leaves as a bedsheet? This sight was very painful to him. There was Yudhisthira, the son of Yamaraj, lying on the ground. Did he deserve such a fate? Did he not deserve sovereignty of the 3 worlds? Did Arjuna, the greatest bowman the world has ever known, deserve to lie on the ground like an ordinary man? Did Nakula and Sahadev, who were like demigods in appearance, deserve to be soiled by the dust of the earth? Bhima then spoke as if the sons of Dhritarashtra were present. "You sons of Dhritarashtra have little foresight. You wicked fellows may enjoy your temporary success. You are alive only because Yudhisthira does not command me to take your lives. If ordered by him, I would send you all to the region of Yamaraj this very day." Having said this, Bhima of mighty arms squeezed his palms, breathing heavily in anger. Looking over his dear brothers and mother, he continued to guard the rest of the night. Not far from where the Pandavas were sleeping, there lived a Rakshasa of the name Hidimba and his sister Hidimvi. Hidimba was very powerful and possessed great prowess. He had sharp teeth and a protruding belly. His shoulders were like the neck of a tree, and he was reddish in hue. Longing for human flesh, he sat in a tree along with his sister. Understanding by the scent in the air that some humans were nearby, he spoke to his sister. "O Hidimvi, I smell human flesh close at hand. My mouth waters at the thought of eating, for I have not satisfied my hunger all day. Go and see who has come. Attacking the human throat and opening the veins, I shall drink to my full satisfaction a large quantity of human blood. Go and bring to me any human beings who are close at hand. We will have a feast of human flesh and dance together in great happiness." Thus commanded by Hidimva, Hidimvi proceeded to the spot where the Pandavas were. She saw the 4 brothers lying asleep with their mother and the invincible Bhima guarding them. Beholding Bhima Sane unrivaled on earth for strength and beauty, the Rakshasi immediately fell in love with him. She thought to herself, "This person has a body like molten gold, and his shoulders are like those of a lion. His neck is shaped like a conch shell, and his eyes are like those of a lotus. Truly he is worthy of being my husband. I shall disobey the order of my brother, for affection for one's husband is greater than that of the brother." The Rakshasi, capable of assuming any form at will, assumed the form of a beautiful celestial woman. Approaching Bhima with a beautiful smile on her lips, she spoke to him as follows. "O bull among men, where have you come from, and who are you? Who also, O sinless one, is this lady of transcendent beauty sleeping here so contently as if in her own chambers? Do you know that this forest is the abode of the Rakshasa named Hidimva? I am his sister, and he has sent me here with the intention of killing you all. Speaking truthfully, I tell you that after beholding your celestial beauty, I can accept no one else as my husband. My heart as well as my body has been pierced by the arrows of Cupid. I will rescue you from this brother of mine who eats human flesh. By my mystic power I will take you wherever you like. Traveling to the celestial gardens, we can enjoy to our heart's content." Hearing the affectionate words of the Rakshasi, Bhima replied, "O beautiful woman, how can I leave my brothers and mother simply to satisfy lusty desires? I will never run from fear of any Rakshasa, for Rakshasas are never able to bear the prowess of my arms. What to speak of Rakshasas, neither mortals nor Gandharvas nor Yakshas can bear my strength. O celestial lady, you may either go or send your cannibal brother, I care not." Hidimva, the chief of the Rakshasas, seeing that his sister had not returned, got down from the tree and proceeded quickly to where the Pandavas were. He saw that his sister had taken a celestial form, bedecked with garlands of flowers and silken garments. The Rakshasa, beholding her in that enchanting form, understood her motives. He became angry and spoke to her. "Why, O sister, have you thrown obstacles on my path when I was now overcome with hunger? O Hidimvi, do you not fear me in the least? You are desiring to enjoy intercourse with my evening meal. You are ready to sacrifice the good name and honor of all the Rakshasas for some gratification of the senses. Therefore I will kill you this very moment." Upon seeing the Rakshasa rushing toward Hidimvi, Bhima, the foremost slayer of the Rakshasas, jumped up and said, "O Hidimva, what need is there to awaken these sleeping persons? O wicked cannibal, approach me first without any loss of time. Why do you want to kill a woman who is scarcely responsible for a desire that pervades all living entities? She does not deserve to be punished for this offense. Come and fight with me, O Rakshasa, and I shall send you to the court of Yamaraj without delay." Replying to the words of Bhima, Hidimva said, "What need is there for all this boasting? Accomplish what you have said and then brag with your tongue. You have wrongly calculated my strength, or else you would not have approached me for an encounter. Let your brothers sleep comfortably, and after killing you and drinking your blood, I shall devour them one after another." The most powerful Hidimva then ran at Bhima, desiring to kill the son of the wind god. Very quickly Bhima grabbed the outstretched arms of Hidimva and began dragging him away from where his brothers and mother were sleeping. The Rakshasa, humbled by the might of Bhima, became very angry, and squeezing the body of Bhima, sent forth a loud roar. The mighty son of Pandu then dragged the demon a further distance so that the cries of the Rakshasa would not awaken his brothers. Fighting like two full-grown elephants, they began to break down trees and bushes that grew in the area. From the sounds of the falling trees, the sleeping brothers awoke. Kunti also awoke from sleep and gazed in wonder at the beautiful woman that was standing before her. Desirous of knowing her identity, Kunti said, "O beautiful woman, whose complexion resembles the lotus flower, where have you come from, and please tell me your name?" Hearing the words of Kunti, Hidimva replied, "The forest that you have taken shelter in belongs to my brother Hidimva, the powerful Rakshasa. I have been sent here to kill all of you on his order. However, seeing the handsome features of your son Bhima, I have fallen in love with him, and have chosen him as my husband. My name is Hidimvi. Presently your son Bhima has dragged my brother to a great distance, and they are engaged in combat." Rising up from sleep and gazing into the distance, Yudhisthira, Arjuna, Nakula, and Sahadev saw Bhima and the Rakshasa engaged in a terrible fight. The dust raised by their feet was filling the whole forest. Rushing to that spot, Arjuna spoke to his elder brother. "I have now rested from sleep. Step aside and let me kill this Rakshasa." Bhima replied, "Do not fear the results of this encounter. Having come within my reach, he shall not escape with his life." Blazing up with anger, Bhima picked up the Rakshasa and whirled him around 1,000 times. Speaking to the Rakshasa, Bhima said, "Today I shall make this forest fit for habitation. You shall no longer feast on the flesh of humans." Saying this much, Bhima threw the Rakshasa down on the ground with all his might, causing a big dust cloud to rise into the sky. The demon sent forth a terrible scream that filled the whole forest. The mighty Bhima then picked up the broken body of the Rakshasa and, holding it in his hands, bent it backwards, breaking it in the middle. This action greatly satisfied his brothers. Seeing the mutilated body of the Rakshasa, Arjuna came forward and congratulated his brother. Then they all headed in the direction of the town that was nearby. The beautiful Hidimvi followed from a distance. Bhima, seeing the Rakshasa woman following, spoke to her as follows. "If you are seeking to revenge the death of your brother, do not follow us, or you will attain the same destination that he has attained." Yudhisthira quickly spoke to Bhima. "O Bhima, O tiger among men, however angry you are, never kill a woman. A higher virtue is to protect life. Besides, what can this woman do to harm us?" Hidimvi then respectfully addressed Kunti in the following words. "O blessed lady, you know the pangs women are made to feel at the hands of the deity Cupid. I have cast off my relations and friends, and have chosen this son of yours as my husband. I tell you truthfully that if this desire is not fulfilled, I will no longer bear this life of mine. Have mercy upon me and unite me with Bhima, who resembles one of the denizens of heaven. Allow him to accompany me to the celestial regions. I shall again return him when you desire." Upon hearing the request of Hidimvi, Yudhisthira said, "Your desire shall be fulfilled in all respects, O beautiful woman. Sport with him during the day, but you must return him by nightfall." Smiling bashfully, Bhima also agreed to the proposal and said, "I will fulfill your desires, but I will stay with you only till you have obtained a son." Bhima then climbed on the back of Hidimvi, and she took him to the abodes of the demigods. They enjoyed each other's company day after day, and in due course of time a child was conceived who was destined to become a mighty warrior. He was given the name Ghatotkach. The child was born bald with fierce eyes and a large mouth. Endowed with mighty arms and great strength, the child soon became a great bowman. Although a small child at birth, he grew up to youth the very hour he was born. Rakshasa women give birth to children the day they conceive. The bald-headed child bowed at the feet of his mother and father. Bhima then gave him the name Ghatotkach, which means bald like a pot. Ghatotkach became exceedingly devoted to the Pandavas and became a favorite among them. Then Hidimvi, knowing that her period of stay with her husband had come to an end, offered respects to the Pandavas and told them that she would again seek their company. Garudaksha then told his father that if he thought of him, he would immediately come to his presence. The mother and son then departed, and the Pandavas continued on their journey. Thus ends the 12th chapter of the Adi Parva to the summary study of the Mahabharata entitled The Killing of the Rakshasa Hidimba. Chapter 13 of the Adi Parva, The Killing of the Rakshasa Bakasura. The Pandavas continued on their journey, wandering from one place to another. Wanting to remain concealed from the general public, they disguised themselves as ascetics, wearing deerskin and the bark of trees. They wandered from one country to another. They saw the countries of the Matsyas, the Trigartas, the Panchalas, and the Kichakas. In the course of their travels, the Pandavas came upon their grandfather, the great sage Vyasadeva. They offered their obeisances and stood before him with folded hands. Vyasadeva then spoke to them. O best of those in the dynasty of Bharata, I am aware of the wicked plans of Dhritarashtra and his sons. Therefore I have come here with the intention of doing good to you. You should not grieve the fate that has come upon you. This will all work out in your favor. Just near here is the town of Ekachakra. If you live there in disguise, no harm will come to you. Vyas then satisfied Kunti with sweet words. Listen, O daughter, to my words. Your eldest son Yudhisthira, who is ever devoted to truth, will soon rule over all other monarchs of the world. There is little doubt about this. Backed by the might of Arjuna's bow and Bhima's strength, Yudhisthira will be the king of this entire earth, bounded by the seas and oceans. Your sons, as well as the sons of Madhuri, will together perform many pious sacrifices, such as the Rajasuya and the Ashvamedha. The fame of your sons will spread all over the earth and will be known for all time. After giving these benedictions, Vyasadeva led them to the town of Ekachakra, and to the house of a pious Brahmana where they could live peacefully. He introduced them to that Brahmana, and after situating them properly, he addressed them. Wait here for me until the time I call for you. Do not be impatient. When the opportune time will come, you will succeed in your endeavors. Vyas then left the town of Ekachakra and returned to his own hermitage on the banks of the Saraswati. While living in the town of Ekachakra, the sons of Pandu would daily go beg their food. When the day's begging was over, they would gather what they had collected and place it before their mother. Kunti would then divide it in half. One half would be for Bhima, and the other half would be for herself and the rest of her sons. In this way they lived life as mendicants. One day, while the boys were collecting their food, Kunti and Bhima overheard loud crying and wailing in the Brahmana's house. Being very grateful to the Brahmana for his hospitality, they wanted to relieve him of his distress. As Kunti approached the rooms of the Brahmana, she heard a conversation between him and his wife. They spoke to each other as follows. To hell with this earthly life, for it is full of misery. It is like a hollow reed in a fruitless glory. The attachment to wife, children, home, and wealth lead only to an unhappy life. When one becomes attached to these, and then they are lost, one suffers greatly. How will we escape from this danger in which we are now entrapped? How can I sacrifice my son, who all these years I have raised so carefully? If he dies or my daughter dies, then I shall certainly die with them. Kunti, taking the opportunity, entered the room where the family was and spoke words that relieved them just like nectar that revives a dead man. She said, I desire to learn from you what is causing your distress. I am certain that my sons or myself can remove any anxiety that you may be feeling. The Brahmana replied, This speech is indeed worthy of you, but I am afraid that this grief cannot be removed by any human being. Not far from this town lives a Rakshasa named Baka. Due to the weakness of the local king, this cannibal rules this country. Because he is the chief of the Asuras, he protects us from any enemies, but his fee is very high. Every fortnight one of the householders in this town must deliver to him a cartload of vegetables and rice, 2 buffaloes, and 1 human being. The turn comes to each family only after many long years. If there are any that seek to avoid their turn, the Rakshasa finds them and devours them. It has been decided that this fortnight is our turn, and I have not the money to buy a man-animal, nor can I part with one of my family members, nor can I escape from the hands of that Rakshasa. For this reason I am sunk in an ocean of grief. Smiling all the while, Kunti spoke to the Brahmana. "Do not be unhappy on account of this danger. I see a way to rescue you from the hands of this Rakshasa. You have only one son who is very young, and your daughter is also young and helpless. The idea of your going or your wife going is not agreeable. So my suggestion is that one of my sons take the offering to this Rakshasa." Hearing this, the Brahmana replied, "To save my own life, I shall never allow this to be done. To save myself, I shall never sacrifice the life of a guest or a Brahmana. The learned have said that one who has taken shelter in one's house should be given protection by all means. Therefore it is fitting that myself and my wife should perish by the hands of this Rakshasa." Kunti then said, "O Brahmana, I am also of the firm opinion that Brahmanas should be protected. My sons are very dear to me, but this Rakshasa will never be able to kill them, for they are endowed with great prowess. This second son of mine will faithfully deliver to the Rakshasa his food, but will not be harmed by him. I have seen before many Rakshasas of great strength fight with my son, but in the end they were all vanquished in their attempts. Do not disclose this fact to anyone, for we have many enemies who might do harm to us." Thus addressed by Prita, the Brahmana and his wife smiled with pleasure and agreed with her proposal. Her words were just like nectar. Then Kunti and the Brahmana approached Bhima and asked him to accomplish all that they had talked about. Bhima agreed, saying, "So be it." Yudhisthira and his brothers, upon returning to the Brahmana's house, heard about the proposal and spoke sharply with their mother. "O mother, what proposal have you offered to this Brahmana without consulting us? You should not have acted so rashly. The learned never allow a mother to abandon her own children. This act will be equal to suicide. Why do you want to sacrifice your own child for the sake of another? Relying on the strength of the arms of Bhima, we will certainly vanquish the sons of Dhritarashtra. If you are resolved to abandon him, how will we accomplish our goals?" Upon hearing the words of Yudhisthira, Kunti replied, "Do not be anxious on account of Vrikadar. I have not made my decision on account of womanly weakness. Seeing his prowess in carrying us from Varnavata and also in killing the Rakshasa Hidimva, I have great confidence in him. The prowess of Bhima's arms are equal to 10,000 elephants. There is no one on earth who can overcome Bhima in strength. Bhima will kill this Rakshasa with great ease. By this act, two objects will be accomplished. One is offering gratitude to the Brahmana for allowing us to stay here undetected by the sons of Dhritarashtra, and secondly, by killing this demon, Bhima's fame will spread far and wide. It is the duty of a Kshatriya to protect the Brahmanas, and for this reason I have offered to help this pious Brahmana." Having heard the words of his mother, Yudhisthira said, "What you have done, moved by compassion for this Brahmana, is indeed excellent. Bhima will certainly kill this Rakshasa and come back with his life. But tell the Brahmana, O mother, that he should not speak to anybody about what is taking place. Make him promise to this request." The following day, Bhimasena, the mighty son of Pandu, loaded the cart full of food and set out for the place where the Rakshasa lived. As he approached that place, Bhima was eating the food that was intended for the Rakshasa Baka. All the way, Bhima was calling out the Rakshasa's name in fun. Hearing his name called in jest, the Rakshasa became angered and came out from the place where he was hiding. The Rakshasa's body was huge, and he possessed great strength. He had red eyes, a red beard, and red hair, and he was terrible to behold. The opening of his mouth was from ear to ear, and as he advanced toward Bhima, he bit his lips in anger and expanded his eyes in wrath. He spoke to Bhima. "Who is this fool desiring to go to the abode of Yamaraj and eating my food? I shall kill him at once." Laughing at the words of the Rakshasa, Bhima continued eating the food in the cart. Seeing the indifference of Bhima, the Rakshasa roared frightfully and ran at Bhima with upraised fist, desiring to kill him then and there. He struck Vrikadar on the back with all his strength, but Bhima was not affected in the least and continued eating the food. The mighty Rakshasa, inflamed with wrath, uprooted a tree and ran toward the son of Kunti. Meanwhile, Bhima, having finished his meal, washed his hands and stood cheerfully for a fight. As the tree came his direction, Bhima caught it with his left hand, smiling all the while. The Rakshasa was infuriated and uprooted more trees and flung them with all his strength at the son of Kunti. Bhima, however, caught those trees and threw them back at the Rakshasa. Soon the forest became treeless, and finding no other weapon, Baka ran at Bhima and seized him with his arms. He dragged Bhima on the ground, and Bhima also dragged him on the ground. Soon the Rakshasa became fatigued, and Bhima pressed him down to the earth with his knees and beat him with his fists. Then, placing one knee on the middle of the Rakshasa's back, Bhima seized his neck with his right hand, and with his left he grabbed the cloth around his waist. Lifting up the neck and the legs while keeping his knee on the back, Bhima bent him double with great force. The cracking of his back and the screaming of his voice filled the whole forest. He vomited blood and gave up his life force. The friends of Baka were frightened, and Bhima addressed them. "Do not kill human beings again, and if you do, you will die as Baka did." The Rakshasas were terrified at the strength of Bhima, and from that day on they were seen by the inhabitants of that town to be very peaceful toward mankind. Then Bhima, dragging the lifeless corpse of the demon, placed him on the city gate and went away, unseen by anyone. The next morning the inhabitants of the city of Ekachakra saw the cannibal's mutilated body, all covered with blood. News spread quickly through the town, and soon 1,000 residents were seen at the city gate. They were amazed to see such a superhuman feat, and in great curiosity they went to the Brahmana's home to inquire about the matter. The Brahmana was eager to cover up the identity of the Pandavas, and he told them, "A certain Brahmana traveling on pilgrimage came to my home and agreed to take my place. He assured me that no harm would come to him." He then carried the cart of food toward the forest. This wonderful deed has certainly been accomplished by him. The citizens of Ekachakra rejoiced to hear what had happened and held a festival especially honoring the Brahmana. Thus ends the 13th chapter of the Adi Parva to the summary study of the Mahabharata entitled Killing of the Rakshasa Bakasura. Chapter 14 of the Adi Parva, the Svayamvara of Draupadi. After the killing of the Baka demon, the Pandavas continued to reside in Ekachakra as before. One day a Brahmana traveling to different places of pilgrimage came to Ekachakra and was invited as a guest in the house in which they were residing. The Pandavas, wanting to hear any interesting news, inquired from him of anything he had seen in his travels. The Brahmana spoke to them of various countries, holy places, and sacred rivers. He also told them about the proposed marriage of the daughter of King Drupad, whose name was Draupadi. He explained how Draupadi as well as her brother Dristadumna were born from the sacrificial fire, and also how Sakandi was born. Wanting to hear more in detail, the Pandavas questioned him. "How, O Brahmana, did the birth of Dristadumna take place from the sacrificial fire? How also did the extraordinary birth of Draupadi take place from the center of the sacrificial platform? How also did Drupad's son learn all the military arts from the great bowman Drona?" Thus questioned by those bulls among men, the Brahmana began to narrate all that they had asked about. The Brahmana said, "After the great king Drupad was defeated in battle by the Pandavas, that pious monarch wandered about the ashrams of Brahmanas well skilled in sacrificial rites. He was searching for someone who could help him kill Drona and regain his kingdom. Once he came upon the sacred river Ganges, and there he saw in an ashram of many Brahmanas 2 sages, Yaja and Upayaja, whose senses were under control and who belonged to the descendants of Kashyapa Muni. The king made friends with them and daily came to see them. He sometimes invited them to his court. One day the king addressed Upayaja in private in the following words: "O great Brahmana, I desire a son who can kill Drona, the preceptor of the Kurus. He has taken half my kingdom and disgraced the dynasty of the Panchalas. If you perform a sacrifice for this purpose, then my desires will be fulfilled. I promise to give in charity 10,000 cows for your pleasure." The rishi then replied to the king, "I cannot perform such a sacrifice." But Drupad continued to worship that Brahmana, and after 1 full year Upayaja said, "I desire nothing of this material world. However, my brother Yaja still hankers after worldly possessions. Approach him and ask him to perform the sacrifice that you desire." Drupad then went to the abode of Yaja and implored him to perform the sacrifice. He said, "O Brahmana, there is a preceptor of the Kurus named Drona who has unfairly defeated me in battle and taken half my kingdom. There is no Kshatriya equal to him on earth. His bow is a full 9 feet long, and his arrows are capable of subduing any enemy. His Brahmana power combined with Kshatriya strength is superior to mine. However, your strength is greater than his, and I request you to perform a sacrifice in which a son may be born to me, who will be invincible in battle and will cause the death of Drona. I promise to give you 10,000 cows in charity." The Brahmana immediately replied, "So be it." After Yajna had agreed to perform the sacrifice, the king made all the necessary preparations for the yajna. When everything was prepared, Yajna poured ghee into the sacrificial fire, accompanied by the chanting of Vedic mantras. As the flames rose, there appeared from the fire a child who possessed the effulgence of the sun. He was wearing a golden crown and was encased in celestial armor. In his left hand he held a bow and arrow, and in his right hand he held a sword. He immediately ascended a chariot and rode about it, producing thundering roars from his mouth. Suddenly there was a voice from the sky announcing, "This prince has been born for the destruction of Drona. He will dispel all the fears of the Panchalas and spread their fame. He will also remove the sorrows of the king." At this time there also arose from the sacrificial fire a young princess who was blessed with good fortune and was comparable to a demigoddess in beauty. Her eyes were black and shaped like lotus petals. Her complexion was dark and her hair was bluish and curly. Her nails were raised and the color of copper. She possessed a fragrance like that of a blue lotus, perceivable for a full 2 miles. Her beauty was such that she had no equal on earth. When she was born, a voice from the sky announced, "This dark-complexioned girl will be the foremost among women, and she will cause the destruction of many Kshatriyas. This slender-waisted woman will accomplish the purpose of the demigods and will bestow upon the Pandavas all good fortune." When the family members of King Drupad heard these auspicious omens, they were very happy and roared with joy. The Brahmanas then gave the children names. "Let this son of King Drupad," they said, "be called Dristadumna." Chapter 16 of the Adi Parva. Panic in the Kaurava court. News spread quickly that Draupadi had been married to the Pandavas, and that Arjuna was the Brahmana who had pierced the eye of the fish and defeated Karna in battle. They all thought that the Pandavas had died along with their mother in the House of Black. They now regarded the Pandavas as persons who had come back from the dead. They remembered the cruel scheme of Parochana and cursed Dhritarashtra again and again. After the Swayamvara was over, all the kings and princes returned to their respective kingdoms. When Duryodhana heard that Draupadi had selected Arjuna as her lord, he became greatly depressed. He left the city of Kampilya accompanied by his brothers, Ashvatthama, Shakuni, Karna, and Kripa. Understanding that the mighty sons of Pritha had escaped from the House of Black and were allied with King Drupad, the sons of Dhritarashtra were struck with fear and overcome with sorrow. When Vidura had learned that Draupadi had been won by the Pandavas and that Duryodhana and his allies had been humiliated, he was full of joy. And approaching King Dhritarashtra, Vidura said, "The Kurus are faring well by the grace of God." Dhritarashtra thought that Vidura was referring to his sons and that Duryodhana had achieved the hand of Draupadi. He immediately ordered that ornaments be made for Draupadi and that Duryodhana and his new wife be brought to Hastinapur in great pomp. It was then that Vidura told the blind king that Draupadi had chosen the Pandavas as her lords. Vidura told Dhritarashtra that the Pandavas were alive and well. He also informed his brother that the Pandavas had made a pact of friendship with the family of Drupad and also many other families, including the Yadu and Vrishni dynasties. Dhritarashtra had to make believe that he was happy to hear the news of the Pandavas' success and well-being. Actually, the news broke his heart. He said to Vidura, "That the sons of my brother are alive is good news. They are more dear to me than my own sons. It is good to hear that they now have many friends and have the great Drupad as their ally." Vidura replied, "Let this realization remain within your heart for 100 years. Vidura then returned to his own abode. Duryodhana went to his father and spoke to him. "The Pandavas have now become strong by the will of Providence. O father, we should now act in every way to weaken their strength. The time has come for an assembly of the Kurus to discuss how the Pandavas may not swallow us all." Dhritarashtra replied, "I desire your welfare and will do whatever you recommend. But I do not wish to inform Vidura of my movements. If you have some plan, then reveal it here, so that we may all come to some conclusion." Duryodhana said, "Let us, O father, by some means produce dissensions between the sons of Kunti and the sons of Madri. Or let King Drupad be won over to our side by means of gifts and wealth. Perhaps we can send spies who can kill Bhima, and without his strength the Pandavas will be easy to defeat. Or maybe we can send some celestial girls to the Pandavas as a gift, and Draupadi being neglected will leave them. By some means let us defeat the power of the Pandavas." Karna then spoke what was within his mind. "O Duryodhana," he said, "this reasoning is not well founded. O brave prince, you have tried many times before to kill the Pandavas by subtle methods while living in the palace and while they were still young. Now they are grown up and more powerful in strength. How then will you defeat them by these methods? It is impossible to defeat them by disunion. Draupadi chose them when they were in poverty. Will she now neglect them when they are in prosperity? Drupad is honest and truthful, and by no means can we tempt him with gifts. Drishtadyumna has made a strong pact of friendship with the Pandavas, and that cannot be broken by offers of wealth. I think that we should now attack them, and by our power exterminate them from the face of the earth. Let us attack them now when they are not prepared. Exert your prowess before the Yadu and Vrishni dynasties are able to support the Pandavas. Prowess is the symbol of a Kshatriya. Let us therefore with a large army grind Drupad and the Pandavas into the earth." Dhritarashtra applauded the speech of Karna as full of heroism. He said, "You are gifted with great intelligence and are very powerful. But before we take action, let us counsel with Bhishma, Drona, and Vidura, and adopt a plan of action that will be suitable to us." King Dhritarashtra then called to the court Bhishma, Drona, Vidura, and the others. When asked by Dhritarashtra to give his opinion, Bhishma replied, "O Dhritarashtra, I would never advise a quarrel with the Pandavas. I treat you as I ever did Pandu, and of course I look upon your sons as well as the sons of Pandu equally. I think a treaty should be concluded with them, and half the kingdom should be given to them. As Duryodhana looks upon the kingdom as his own, so the sons of Kunti look upon it as theirs. In fact, they are the lawful heirs to the throne. If you act in an aggressive way, evil will befall you. You will be covered with dishonor and will lose your good name. Do you know how the citizens talk about you now? The citizens have more affection for the Pandavas, and if you kill them, what will be your fate? It is said that a person lives in vain who loses his reputation. A person who becomes famous because of his good deeds lives eternally. O Duryodhana, follow the practice worthy of the Kuru race. We are fortunate that the Pandavas and their mother have not perished. We are fortunate that the sinful Parochana has not been able to accomplish his purpose and has been killed. From the time I heard that the sons of Pandu had been burnt in the house of Black, I could not face any of the citizens of the state. O Duryodhana, hearing the fate of the Pandavas and their mother Kunti, the world does not blame Parochana as much as it blames you. As long as the Pandavas are alive, they cannot be deprived of their rightful share even by the powerful Indra. They are being wrongly kept from their equal share, and therefore you should give them half the kingdom." After Maharaj Bhishma had finished, Drona spoke. "Bhishma has spoken true words of wisdom. Let the Pandavas be given half the kingdom. Send to the kingdom of the Panchalas messengers who can speak sweet language and offer to the Pandavas a gift of wealth. Let Yudhisthira know that both yourself and your son are truly happy that they are alive. Also there should be an alliance made between the Kuru dynasty and the dynasty of Drupad. The Pandavas should be brought to Hastinapur in great pomp and opulence. Let those foremost among men be brought to Hastinapur and be installed on the throne as their rightful claim. This will be agreeable to all the people of the world." After Drona had stopped speaking, Vidura said, "O king, what has been spoken by Bhishma and Drona is for your good, but you do not listen to it. The words of Karna are like a little child's. Bhishma, the son of Shantanu, has never spoken advice that has not been for your good and the welfare of the kingdom. Neither has Drona the preceptor spoken any ill advice. Without doubt, O king, both of these great men are comparable to Lord Ramachandra and the great King Gaya. These two great souls have never done any harm to you. The words of your son and the words of Karna will lead to the extinction of your race. The Pandavas can never be defeated in battle. Arjuna alone is able to subdue all these princes. With Krishna the eternal Lord and Balaram as their allies, how do you think that you can gain the kingdom? Your son, Karna and Shakuni, are sinful and foolish, and if you remember, I told you that for Duryodhana's fault the subjects of this kingdom would be exterminated. Hearing the instructions given by the Kuru elders, which were meant for his own good, Dhritarashtra said, "The learned Bhishma and the great Rishi Drona, and you also, Vidura, have spoken the truth. The sons of Pandu are entitled to a share of the kingdom, as are my sons. Therefore, O Vidura, go to the kingdom of the Panchalas and induce the Pandavas to come here along with their wife Draupadi. Take with you various presentations, such as jewels, horses, chariots, and gold. It is by good fortune that the sons of Pandu are still alive." Vidura then went to the city of Kampilya and requested the Pandavas to come to Hastinapur. With the permission of Lord Krishna and King Drupad, the Pandavas started for the city of the elephants. As the Pandavas approached the city of Hastinapur, certain heroes of the Kuru dynasty came out to greet them, such as Vikarna, Drona, Chitrasen, and Kripa of Gautama's line. The whole city became alive as the Pandavas approached. The citizens gathered in thousands, and those saintly kings enlivened the citizens, as the sun enlivens the lotus flower in the early morning. The Pandavas heard the words of the citizens as they moved through the crowd. Some of them said, "Here is Yudhisthira, the first son of Pandu, conversant with all the rules of morality, and who always protects us as if we were his nearest relatives." Other citizens said, "It seems that King Pandu, the foremost among the descendants of the Kuru dynasty, has returned today after a long absence. If we have ever given in charity, if we have ever performed any pious activities, let the Pandavas remain in this great city for 100 years." The Pandavas entered the city to the sounds of trumpets, bugles, conch shells, drums, and kettle drums. The citizens waved their upper cloths and threw flowers before the procession of those pious souls. Yudhisthira, Bhima, Arjuna, Nakula, and Sahadev, as well as their mother, Kunti, entered the palace at Hastinapur in state. They worshipped the feet of Dhritarashtra as well as Bhishma, and then entered the rooms assigned to them. After they had rested for some time, they were called to the court by Dhritarashtra and Shantanu's son Bhishma. When they had been seated properly, Dhritarashtra spoke to them. "Listen, O Yudhisthira, to what I have to say. I want you to reside in Khandavaprastha so that no differences may arise between yourselves and my sons. I am sure that if you live there, no harm will come to you, protected as you are by the strong arms of Partha. This half of the kingdom you may rule over." Agreeing to what Dhritarashtra had said, the Pandavas set out for Khandavaprastha. Thus ends the 16th chapter of the Adi Parva to the summary study of the Mahabharata, entitled Panic in the Kaurava Court. Chapter 17 of the Adi Parva, Khandavaprastha. After Yudhisthira was coronated the king of Khandavaprastha, he along with his brothers and their beautiful queens set out for that tract of land. The history behind this half of the kingdom is that at one time it had been the capital of the Kuru ancestors, but due to the curse of the rishis it had been turned into a barren waste. Nothing would grow there and no animals lived there. As far as the eye could see, there was nothing but desert. Lord Krishna had accompanied the Pandavas, and upon seeing the situation, spoke to Yudhisthira. "Just look at the very beautiful country given to you by your loving uncle. The person that looks at the beauty of lightning usually forgets the thunder that follows in the wake. To think that this injustice has been sanctioned by the grandsire Bhishma shows that they are all to meet their fate. They will all reap the fruits of their actions. This will all happen in the future. For now let us see what we can do to frustrate the proposed plan of the blind king." Lord Krishna then summoned Indra, the king of heaven, and ordered him, "The Kuru monarch has magnanimously given this tract of land to the Pandavas. I want you to pour rain over this region and make it beautiful. Make it so fertile that the finest of the fruit trees and most fragrant flowers will grow in this region. Also the finest of crops should grow in the land of Khandavaprastha. From this time on, because you will beautify this region, it will be known as Indraprastha. Make it as beautiful as Indraloka. Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then called for Vishvakarma and ordered him to construct a city for the Pandavas. By the mystic power of Vishvakarma, he was able to construct a beautiful city that was dazzling in all respects. Vyasadeva was there to consecrate the new city with mantras from the Vedic hymns. The city was indeed beautiful with its nicely aligned roads and symmetrical houses. The mansions were made of first-class marble and embedded with precious gems. There were beautiful gardens with lakes filled with lotus flowers. These gardens were filled with fruit trees of every description, as well as beautiful birds such as the peacock, cuckoo, parrots, and chakravakas. When the city was complete, men and women from all classes came to live under the protection of the saintly sons of Pritha. All these citizens were pious and devoted to the cause of the Pandavas. With Lord Krishna living in the city as the most beautiful ornament, Indraprastha appeared like Vaikuntha, the spiritual world. After some time, Lord Krishna took leave of the Pandavas and returned to his capital city, Dwarka. There then came to the city of Indraprastha the celestial sage Narada Muni. He was received in the palace of the Pandavas with great respect. Draupadi also came and offered her respects to the great sage, and after receiving benedictions from him, retired to her own chambers. Narada then addressed the Pandavas in private. "This beautiful princess is your common wife. Some rule must be established so that you may not quarrel amongst yourselves. In former days there lived two brothers named Sunda and Upasunda, who were inseparable and could not be killed by anyone. However, when they saw the beauty of the heavenly Apsara Tilotama, they quarreled over her and killed each other. Do not let this happen to you." Upon hearing the words of wisdom from the great sage Narada, the brothers decided that Draupadi would live with each of them for 1 year at a time. If it so happened that one of the brothers were to enter the brother's palace where Draupadi was staying, that brother must enter the forest for some time. After establishing this rule, the Pandavas resided happily in the city of Indraprastha. One day it so happened that some robbers stole the cows of a certain Brahmana. The Brahmana came to Indraprastha and complained to Arjuna. Arjuna said that he would help the Brahmana, but that he could not do it immediately, for his bow was in the chambers where Yudhisthira and Draupadi were sitting. The Brahmana wanted immediate action before the thieves went too far. Arjuna had to bow to the Brahmana's demands and entered the chambers where Yudhisthira and Draupadi were sitting. He told Yudhisthira why he had entered, and then took his weapons. He took the Brahmana on his chariot and chased after the thieves. Following their tracks, he soon caught them and pierced them with his arrows. He retrieved the cows for the Brahmana, and the Brahmana, being pleased, bestowed blessings upon Arjuna. Arjuna then returned to Indraprastha. At that time Partha approached Yudhisthira and said, "Give me permission, O Lord, to keep the vow that we all took. I have entered the room when you were with Draupadi. I shall therefore enter the forest for 1 year." Yudhisthira tried to talk him out of his resolution, but it was of no use. Arjuna was determined to go to the forest. Thus ends the 17th chapter of the Adi Parva to the summary study of the Mahabharata entitled Khandavaprastha. Chapter 18 of the Adi Parva. Arjuna goes on pilgrimage. After leaving Indraprastha, Arjuna came to the banks of the Ganges. He entered the waters of the celestial river to take a bath, and while coming out he was seized by some unknown force. Actually, it was Ulupi, the daughter of the king of the snakes. She was overcome by the handsome features of Arjuna and thus bitten by the arrows of Cupid. She took him below the waters of the Ganges to her mansion. Arjuna then addressed her smilingly, "O beautiful girl, what rash act have you done? Where have you brought me, and whose daughter are you?" Ulupi replied, "There is a Naga king of the name Kauravya, born in the line of Airavata. I am, O prince, the daughter of that king, and my name is Ulupi. O tiger among men, seeing you bathing in the waters of the Ganga, I have been bitten by the arrows of Cupid. O sinless one, I am still unmarried, and if it pleases you, I can become your wife." Arjuna said, "I have entered the forest for 1 year to perform atonement for breaking a promise to my brother Yudhisthira. I am not free to act in the way I like. I must strictly undergo the vow of brahmacharya for the period of 1 year. How therefore can I fulfill your desires?" Ulupi replied, "I know why you are wandering the earth. Draupadi is your common wife, and by accident you have entered the room where she was sitting with Yudhisthira. Thus you have broken a vow that was made in this connection. But this vow of celibacy is only in relation to Draupadi. Therefore, O Arjuna, it is your duty to relieve me of my distress. I am your worshipper, and if you do not accept me, then I will give up this life." Thus addressed by the daughter of the Naga king, Arjuna the son of Kunti did everything that she desired. The mighty Arjuna spent that night in the mansion of Ulupi, and in the morning she took him back to the bank of the Ganges. Before leaving she gave him a benediction. "You will be able to defeat every creature of the waters." Arjuna then traveled to the base of the Himalayan mountains, and then east toward the ocean. He then came upon the province of Manipur, and desiring to see the king of that country, he went to his palace. The king of Manipur was Chitravahan, and while in the king's court he happened to see the beautiful daughter of the king named Chitrangada. He was overwhelmed by her beauty and went to the king and asked for her hand in marriage. The king inquired, "Who are you, and what dynasty do you belong?" Arjuna replied, "I am Arjuna the son of Pandu and Kunti." The king said, "There was a king belonging to our dynasty whose name was Prabhanjana. Although he had many queens, he was childless. He underwent severe penances and austerities, and thus he pleased Lord Shiva, who granted him the benediction of a child. However, Lord Shiva told him that each successive king would have only one child. Each of my forefathers has begotten a son, but I have given birth to a daughter. I will give you my daughter on the condition that the son born of her will be given to me as the next king of Manipur." Arjuna agreed to the proposal, and thus he married Chitrangada and lived happily for 3 months in that kingdom. Arjuna then traveled to South India, where he delivered the Panchapsaras. These apsaras were cursed by a great rishi to become alligators. They were cursed to take that form for 100 years. Arjuna came to that sacred lake and pulled out all 5 alligators from the waters. The alligators immediately returned to their normal features as beautiful apsaras. They then thanked Arjuna and left for the heavenly planets. Arjuna then went north to the city of Dwarka. When the sons of the Vrishni dynasty were learning archery from Drona at Hastinapur, Arjuna's good friend had been Gada, one of the cousins of Krishna. Gada had told Arjuna about his cousin Subhadra. Arjuna had heard so much about her beauty that he always thought of her. Arjuna wanted to get a good look at her without being seen, and he thought that since he was dressed as a mendicant, no one would recognize him. With this in mind, he went to Takṣaśilā near the city of Dwarka. He sat underneath a banyan tree, and suddenly it began to rain. He thought deeply of Lord Krishna and hoped that he would come and help him. Lord Krishna was staying that night in the palace of his wife Satyabhama. He had heard that a sadhu had arrived at Prabhash, and he knew that it was Arjuna. Krishna began laughing, and wanting to know about the situation, Satyabhama questioned him. He then replied to her, "My cousin Arjuna has been on pilgrimage for several months, and now has come to Dwarka to seek the hand of Subhadra. Indeed, his heart is filled with her pictures. He is sitting under a banyan tree at Prabhash in the pouring rain. I should go to him and welcome him to Dwarka." Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the benefactor of his devotee, then went to Prabhash in the rain and greeted his friend who was sitting under a banyan tree. They embraced, and Krishna was smiling to see his friend in the guise of an ascetic. Arjuna told Krishna of his plan to marry Subhadra, and Krishna agreed to the proposal. Lord Krishna then took Arjuna to Raivataka mountain and told him to reside there for a few days. One day there was a procession of the Yadus and the Vrishnis traveling to the holy Raivataka mountain. They were coming to worship the demigods in the temple. On that procession he saw the beautiful Subhadra, and as he was contemplating her features, he felt that someone was near him. He looked up and saw that it was Krishna. Lord Krishna said, "The attraction in your eyes doesn't seem to fit the dress that you are wearing." Arjuna replied, "Please do not tease me. Tell me the truth. Is that your sister Subhadra who has just passed in the procession?" Krishna replied, "Yes, of course, that is Subhadra. If you are very interested in her, I will tell my father about your desire." Arjuna replied, "I want to marry her. Please tell me how she can become my wife." Krishna said, "I think that if you sit in the temple courtyard here, everything will take its destined course." Krishna then left and mingled with the crowd of his relatives. Arjuna, in the dress of an ascetic, then sat in the courtyard of the temple, and when the worship in the temple was over, the members of the Yadu dynasty, headed by Lord Balaram, came out and saw the young sage sitting under a tree in deep meditation. Balaram was impressed with the young sage and went over to him. Arjuna was very nervous because he knew of the anger of Lord Balaram. Balaram was already in favor of handing his sister over to Duryodhana. Therefore Arjuna had to be careful not to reveal his disguise. Lord Balaram fell prostrate before the young sannyasi and asked him who he was and why he had come to Dwarka. Arjuna told Balaram that he was on pilgrimage and that since it was the rainy season he needed somewhere to stay. Balaram then suggested the gardens of his sister Subhadra, since it would give a chance for his sister to serve a great ascetic. Besides, he lived close by and the sannyasi could take his meals occasionally at his palace. Lord Krishna came up to them at this time and offered obeisances to the so-called sannyasi. Balaram told Lord Krishna of his plan, and Krishna expressed his displeasure. "I do not think it is advisable for this ascetic to associate with our sister. We don't know anything about him. He is young and beautiful, and Subhadra could be attracted to him. But you are wiser than I am, and ultimately you should make the decision." Balaram replied, "This sannyasi has traveled all over the world and has completely controlled his senses. There is no harm in letting him stay in Subhadra's gardens." Krishna agreed and took Arjuna to his sister. Krishna introduced the so-called sannyasi to his sister and informed her of the desires of Lord Baladev. Subhadra then took the ascetic to the gardens and gave him a place to stay. She served him day after day by getting him water and food to eat. Arjuna would sometimes go to the palace of Lord Balaram and take his meals there. Subhadra would come too, and Arjuna would always look upon her beautiful features. Balaram was much pleased with the great ascetic. Subhadra sometimes could not understand why the ascetic looked at her with burning eyes. In the city of Dwarka, the name of Arjuna was a household word. When young children challenged each other, it was in the name of Arjuna, and if elders blessed young children, it would be in hopes that they would become like Arjuna. Subhadra had heard a lot about Arjuna, and especially she heard about him from Gada. She developed an attraction for him simply by hearing about him, just as Rukmini had developed an attraction for Lord Krishna just by hearing about him. Krishna would also tell her about the wonderful qualities of Arjuna, and if anyone came from Indraprastha, she would inquire about Arjuna from them. From the descriptions given by all these persons, Subhadra began to think that maybe this sannyasi might be Arjuna. One day Subhadra began to question him. "People say that you have traveled all over Bharatvarsha. In your travels surely you must have visited Indraprastha. In that city lives my Aunt Kunti and my cousins the Pandavas. Have you met them?" The so-called sannyasi said that he had. Subhadra continued, "I have heard that Arjuna has been away from Indraprastha and traveling on pilgrimage like you are. Have you by chance met him?" Arjuna replied, "Oh yes, I have met him. In fact, I know where he is at the present moment." "Where?" asked Subhadra in an excited voice. Drista meaning one who has been born from the fire, and Dumya meaning one who is born with natural armor. "The girl shall be called Krishna because she is dark in complexion, and she will also be known as Draupadi, being the daughter of King Drupad." The Brahmana continued, "Thus those two children were born from the sacrificial fire of King Drupad. Dristadumya was taken as a student of the great Drona, even though he was to kill Drona. Drona accepted all this as providence and gave instructions to the son of Drupad. Hearing of the beauty of Draupadi, the Pandavas appeared bitten by the arrows of Cupid. Indeed, the sons of Pandu lost their peace of mind. Then Kunti, seeing her sons inattentive and restless, addressed Yudhisthira and said, "For such a long time we have been living in the abode of this Brahmana. Now we should leave this place. Perhaps the kingdom of the Panchalas would be a suitable place to go. We as of yet have not seen that country, and it will no doubt, O hero, prove delightful to us." All the sons, Yudhisthira, Bhima, Arjuna, Nakula, and Sahadeva, agreed, and they prepared themselves to go to the country of Drupad. While they were in the midst of their preparations, Vyas, the son of Satyavati, arrived at the Brahmana's house. The Pandavas, along with their mother, offered obeisances and stood before the great rishi with folded hands. They offered him a seat, water, food, and sweet words. They then waited for the best of the sages to speak. Vyasadeva said, "In the city of Kampilya, in the country of the Panchalas, lives a king named Drupad. He has a very beautiful daughter named Draupadi. She is destined to be your wife. Soon there will be a Svayamvara ceremony in which she will choose the husband she desires. Go there and obtain her for your wife, for she will greatly satisfy all of you." Having said this much, the great ascetic left and again returned to his hermitage. The Pandavas then set out for the country of the Panchalas. They traveled along the banks of the Ganges till they came to a sacred place where the great sages performed worship of Lord Shiva. It was night time, and it so happened that a certain king of the Gandharvas was sporting in the water along with his queens. Arjuna was carrying a torch and leading the party along the bank of the river. The king of the Gandharvas, seeing them coming, rose out of the water and ascended his chariot. He picked up his bow, and stretching it to full length, he spoke to the Pandavas. "It is commonly known that the hours of nightfall are set aside for the Gandharvas, Yakshas, and Rakshasas to sport in this great river. The hours during the day are for human beings. Therefore do not approach this river if you care for your life. I am Angorparna, the Gandharva, and I am a friend of Kuvera, the treasurer of the heavenly planets. This forest on the bank of the Ganges has been given to me by Kuvera, and this forest has been named after me. Therefore leave this area if you value your life." Hearing the words of the Gandharva, Arjuna said, "Blockhead, whether it be day, night, or twilight, who can bar others from the ocean, the Himalayas, or this river? One can approach this river at any time, because this river flows from the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu. It can cleanse one of all sins. It is meant for all living beings at any time. How then can you stop us from drinking its water?" Angered by the words of Arjuna, the Gandharva, drawing his bow to a full circle, released arrows that were deadlier than poisonous serpents. Janamejaya Arjuna, wielding a shield and torch, warded off all the arrows released. He then addressed the Gandharva, "Do not try to frighten those that are skilled in weapons. If you think that you are very powerful, then defend yourself from this weapon." Arjuna then threw his torch that was empowered with the mantras for the Agni Astra. The weapon burnt the chariot of the Gandharva and deprived him of his consciousness. He fell from his chariot to the ground. Arjuna grabbed him by the hair and, dragging him along the ground, brought him to his brothers. The Gandharva awoke and spoke to Arjuna. "I have been defeated by you, and no longer can I boast of my strength. I am pleased with you and want to impart to you the science of producing mystic illusions which the Gandharvas possess. I will also bestow upon you 100 horses that will never tire on the field of battle. These horses cannot be killed and can travel at any speed according to the will of the charioteer. I want in return your weapon of fire." Arjuna said, "I will accept your horses in exchange for my weapon. Let our friendship last forever. Please tell us why you have not allowed us to come to the bank of the Ganges. We have nothing to fear from the Gandharvas. There must be some reason other than the one you have mentioned." The Gandharvas replied, "Kshatriyas are known to be guided by the Brahmanas. You are traveling from a great distance, but there is no Brahmana walking in front of you. You are also without ashram, although you have completed your brahmacharya training. The fact is that you are not recognizable to human society. For this reason I have challenged you in this way. In the forest nearby is a sacred place called Utkochka. Domya, the younger brother of Devala, is engaged in penances and austerities. Go there and request him to become your guru. He is possessed of superior intelligence and will help you in distressful circumstances." Arjuna, being pleased with the Gandharva, gave him his fire weapon and told him to keep the horses until the time he called for them. The Pandavas then approached Domya in the forest, and seeing his good qualities, they humbly requested him to become their priest and advisor, since every Kshatriya should be guided by someone from the Brahmana class. Domya developed an immediate attachment for the Pandavas and agreed to become their priest. Indeed, the Pandavas considered themselves so fortunate to have Domya as their guide that they thought Draupadi to be already obtained and their kingdom returned. They requested Domya to accompany them to Kampilya and help them win the hand of Draupadi. Domya agreed, and then they all set out together for the kingdom of the Panchalas. The city of Kampilya was alive with the sounds of musical instruments, and the citizens were busily preparing for the Svayamvara. Kings and princes from the foremost of the dynasties had come for the Svayamvara. The Pandavas, along with Domya, took up their residence in the house of a potter and witnessed the preparations for the marriage ceremony. King Drupad had a special amphitheater built for the marriage of his daughter. In his heart he wanted only Arjuna to marry Draupadi, and he had a special bow made that was so stiff that only Arjuna could string it. Also, if by chance someone else could string the bow, on the ceiling of the amphitheater was a wheel, and on the wheel was a fish. The person who strung the bow also had to pierce the eye of the fish, not by looking at it directly, but by seeing the reflection of it from a pot of water on the floor. King Drupad felt that only Arjuna could perform this feat. Having set up the Svayamvara in this way, he announced to all the kings of the earth his intention of marrying his daughter, and the means by which to obtain her. He hoped that Arjuna had not actually been killed in the house of Black, and that this Svayamvara would bring him to the city of Kampilya. On the day of the Svayamvara, those kings and princes who had come from different lands entered the amphitheater and took their respective seats. Also the citizens, anxious to see the outcome of the marriage ceremony, assembled in thousands. The priest for the marriage ceremony lit the sacrificial fire to the sounds of the Vedic mantras, and when all was perfectly quiet, Dristadumna, taking the hand of the beautiful Draupadi, spoke to the assembled Kshatriyas. "Welcome are all the kings of the princes from different lands. Here is my sister Draupadi, whose beauty surpasses the beauty of all women on earth. To gain the hand of my sister, one must string this strongly constructed bow. When the bow is strung, one must pierce the fish in the eye as it lies on the chariot wheel on the ceiling. One cannot directly look at the fish, but must see it by the reflection in this pot of water. Whoever can achieve this feat will obtain my sister Krishna for his wife." Having spoken to the assembled monarchs, Drupad's son then addressed his sister in the following words. "Here, O Draupadi, are assembled the best of the Kshatriya race. Here is Duryodhana and his 100 brothers, accompanied by Karna. They have come here to gain your hand. Innumerable other monarchs have also come for you. Here is Shikuni, the son of the king of Gandhara. He is also accompanied by his brothers. Here is the great bowman Ashvatthama, the son of Drona. Here is King Shusharman with his 5 brothers, and here is the very powerful Jarasandha. There is King Virat along with his 2 sons, Shanka and Uttara. There is King Pondraka and King Bhagadat, who are endowed with great prowess. The king of Kalinga has come, as well as the king of Madras, Salya, whose strength equals tens of thousands of elephants. There, sitting in front of you, is Krishna, the son of Vasudeva, and his very powerful brother Balaram. Also from the Yadu dynasty has come Satyaki, Kritavarman, and Akrura. There are many other kings from the Vishnu dynasty, as well as powerful kings from the Kuru race. There is Somadat and his 3 sons, Buri, Burishrava, and Sala. Also here is King Shishupal. All these warriors, as well as many others, have come to gain your hand in marriage. Endowed with great prowess, they will endeavor to pierce the fish in the eye." Witnessing the beauty of Draupadi, all the princes and kings stood up anxious to exert their strength. They all became jealous of each other and said, "Draupadi shall be mine." They were all overcome by the celestial beauty of the daughter of Drupad, and some were so drunk with that beauty that they could barely walk. The demigods assembled in the sky in their celestial airplanes to witness the event. The whole arena became alive with excitement, and the Pandavas, dressed like Brahmanas, stood up to get a better view of the beautiful princess. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, seeing the Pandavas sitting amongst the Brahmanas, leaned over and spoke to Balaram. "Look, Baladev, there is Yudhisthira, Bhima, Arjuna, and the twins." Balaram looked in the direction of the Brahmanas, and seeing the Pandavas looking intently upon Draupadi, smiled with satisfaction. One by one the Kshatriyas came forward to string the bow. They were all adorned with crowns, garlands, golden ornaments, and other kind of armlets. They were full of enthusiasm and energy. However, most of them could not even string the bow. Indeed, in the attempt they were knocked down to the ground when the strength of their arms proved insufficient. Some, such as Duryodhana, were able to string the bow, but missed the eye of the fish by the width of a finger. The great Salya missed the target by the width of a bean seed. Shishupal, the son of Damagosh, was able to string the bow but missed the target by the width of a sesame seed. Jarasandha was next to try. He was able to string the bow but missed the target by the width of a mustard seed. Seeing no one able to pierce the target, Karna, the foremost wielder of the bow and arrow, rose from his seat and approached the bow. Everyone was watching him with tense excitement. The Pandavas regarded the eye of the fish as already pierced. He quickly strung the bow and placed the arrow on the string. However, Draupadi loudly said, "I will not select a Sutta as my lord." Karna released his arrow, but missed the target by a hair's breadth. When none of the Kshatriyas were able to fell the target, Arjuna in the dress of a Brahmana stood up and addressed Dristadumna. "Is a Brahmana allowed to take part in this competition? I see that no king or prince can hit the target." His fearless eyes swept over the assembly of monarchs with a contemptuous look. Dristadumna said, "Yes, of course, anyone can take part in the competition. Come forward and string the bow, and if you can, pierce the target." Arjuna then picked up the bow and stood there like a mountain. Remembering Lord Krishna in his heart, he quickly strung the bow and set the arrow to it. There was not a sound in the audience. All eyes were on Arjuna. Looking at the reflection of the fish in the water, Arjuna raised his bow and let loose his arrow, which pierced the fish of the eye, causing it to fall to the ground. There was an uproar amongst the demigods in the firmament, and the amphitheater resounded with joy. The demigods began to shower flowers upon Arjuna, and the Brahmanas waved their upper garments in the air. The kings who had been unsuccessful were overcome with disbelief. The whole arena was filled with the sounds of drums, kettle drums, cymbals, and conches. And thinking the Brahmana to be Arjuna, Drupad was smiling from ear to ear. Draupadi approached Arjuna and placed upon his neck the garland of victory. Unable to tolerate Drupad bestowing his daughter upon a Brahmana, the assembled kings spoke as follows. "This Drupad has insulted us deliberately. The Vedic statement is that the Svayamvara ceremony is meant for the Kshatriyas and not for the Brahmanas. Since the Brahmanas are to be protected, we can do nothing to harm this one who has pierced the target. However, in order to avoid total disgrace, let us kill this Drupad." Having spoken to one another in this way, they picked up their weapons and rushed at Drupad to kill him. And Drupad, seeing the kings and princes approaching him, took shelter of Arjuna. Arjuna smiled reassuringly at him and told him, "Do not fear, I am able to handle all of them." In order to counteract the weapons of the enemy, Bhima uprooted a tree and stood next to his brother. Yudhisthira, Nakula, and Sahadeva also stood ready for combat. Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, addressed his all-powerful brother Balaram. "That hero there, who walks like a lion and wielding a bow 4 cubits in length, is Arjuna. There is no doubt of this. Look at that Brahmana standing with an uprooted tree in his hand. This must surely be the second son of Pandu, the mighty Bhima. The tall youth who walks like a lion and is possessed of supreme intelligence is Yamaraja's son, Yudhisthira. The other 2 handsome youths are the sons of Madri, Nakula and Sahadeva. They have not died in the house of lack after all." Lord Balaram, smiling at his brother, said, "This is good news, Krishna. I am happy to hear that our father's sister Kunti and her 5 sons are alive." While Lord Krishna and Balaram were speaking, the kings approached Arjuna for an encounter. The Brahmanas stood up to help Arjuna, but Partha assured them that he could handle the whole situation himself. Karna then rushed at Arjuna, and Salya rushed at Bhima. Duryodhana fought with Yudhisthira, and Shakuni fought with Sahadeva and Nakula. Arjuna counteracted the arrows of Karna, and Karna, becoming furious, fought with greater vigor. Unable to defeat his opponent, Karna addressed him. "O foremost of the Brahmanas, I am amazed to see the strength of your arms in combat. Are you Parashuram or the great Indra himself? Could you be the younger brother of Indra, the infallible Lord Vishnu, disguised to defeat me in battle? No one can defeat me except for the son of Sachi or Arjuna, the son of Pandu." Hearing these words, Arjuna replied, "O Karna, I am not Parashuram, Indra, or the eternal Lord Vishnu. I am only a Brahmana, and I have learned the science of archery from my preceptor. I am here to vanquish you in battle." Karna then desisted from fighting for fear of angering a Brahmana. Meanwhile, Bhima, engaged in battle with Salya, picked him up and threw him a distance without hurting him. No one could understand who the Brahmanas were, and being unable to defeat them, they stopped their advances. Arjuna, followed by Draupadi and his brothers, left the arena of competition and went back to the potter's house. Lord Krishna, desiring to help the Pandavas, followed from a distance. Thus ends the 14th chapter of the Adi Parva to the summary study of the Mahabharata entitled The Svayamvara of Draupadi. Chapter 15 of the Adi Parva. Two alliances are made. When the Pandavas entered the house of the potter, they called out to their mother, "Mother, come and see what we have collected today." Kunti was inside the house, and without seeing her sons, she said, "Whatever you have brought today should be shared equally among you." The next moment she saw Draupadi and exclaimed, "Oh, what have I said?" They then informed her all that had taken place that day. She took the daughter of Drupad by the hand and approached Yudhisthira. "The daughter of King Drupad has been given to me as the alms collected for the day," she said. "In ignorance I have spoken the words, 'Share equally what you have obtained.' O best among the Kuru race, tell me how my words may not prove to be false." Thus addressed by his mother, Yudhisthira reflected for a moment and then addressed Arjuna. "Today you have won the hand of Draupadi. It is proper, therefore, that you marry her. Ignite the sacrificial fire and marry her according to the Vedic rites." Hearing the words of his elder brother, Arjuna said, "I do not want to take part in any sinful activities. You are the oldest, and according to Vedic injunctions, the older brother must be married first. Once you are married, then the rest of us will marry according to our birth. We therefore await the decision you make after due deliberation." The remarks of Partha were full of respect and devotion. After hearing the words of Arjuna, all the brothers cast their glance at the beautiful Draupadi, and Draupadi also looked upon all the Pandavas with affectionate glances that captivated their hearts. Understanding what was within the minds of his brothers, Yudhisthira, fearing division amongst themselves, addressed all of them. "The beautiful Draupadi shall be the common wife of all of us." With these words, the faces of his brothers blossomed like lotus flowers. After the Pandavas had left the Svayamvara assembly, Krishna and Balaram followed them. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and is very kind to his devotees. The Pandavas are all eternal associates of the Lord, and Lord Krishna wanted to benedict them with his association, which is hankered after by all pure devotees of the Lord. Lord Krishna entered the house of the potter along with his brother Balaram. There they saw the Pandavas sitting round their mother, and they also saw Draupadi. Lord Krishna approached Yudhisthira and offered his obeisances and said, "I am Krishna, the son of Vasudeva." The Lord then touched the feet of Kunti. Balaram did the same. Krishna then embraced Arjuna because they were the same age, and accepted the obeisances of Nakula and Sahadeva. Balaram embraced Bhima because they were the same age, and accepted the obeisances of Arjuna and the twins. Yudhisthira then inquired from Lord Krishna, "O Vasudeva, how have you been able to find us, though we have been living in disguise?" Krishna was smiling and then answered the inquiry of Yudhisthira. "O king, fire, even if it is covered, can never be concealed." Who else but the Pandavas could exhibit such prowess as was shown today? It is by good fortune that you have escaped the burning of the house of Lak. Those evil sons of Dhritarashtra could not carry out their wicked plans. Remain hidden for some time, and do not let the sons of Dhritarashtra know where you are till you have made alliances. You have the backing of the whole Yadu and Vrishni house. Do not fear anything. We will leave now so that no one will know that we have come here." Then, obtaining Yudhisthira's permission, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Balaram, his immediate expansion, left the potter's house and returned to their own abodes. There was also someone else who had followed the Pandavas to the potter's house. It was Dristadumna, the son of Drupad. He was anxious to find out who had won the hand of his sister. After Krishna and Balaram left the house, he came closer to the window to listen to their conversation. Kunti was talking with Draupadi about the food that they had collected that day. She said, "Take first a portion and offer it to Lord Vishnu, then distribute it to the brahmanas and guests. Divide what is left into 2 portions. 1 portion is for Bhima, for my second son is ever hungry." Bhima turned red from embarrassment, and Draupadi smiled. Dristadumna saw the expression on her face and was glad to know that she was not sad or depressed. He saw the gleam in her eye and the bright smile on her face. Kunti continued, "The other portion can be divided amongst the other 4 brothers and ourselves." Draupadi then did as she was told. After her husbands had eaten, Draupadi took her portion of prasad. When they were finished with their evening meal, the sun was setting. Sahadeva then laid a bed of kusha grass on the floor. Deerskins were laid on top of the kusha grass, and the brothers laid down to sleep. Kunti laid at their heads, and Draupadi laid at their feet. They talked about chariots, bows, arrows, maces, elephants, and armies. Dristadumna overheard all that was said, and then, after they had fallen asleep, he went back to the palace of his father. King Drupad was lamenting, unsure of who had taken his daughter. After returning from the potter's house, Dristadumna entered the palace and offered his obeisances to his father. As his son stood before him, King Drupad inquired, "O my son, where has Krishna Draupadi gone? Who has taken her away? Has a Shudra of the lower orders abducted her? Has a Vaishya taken her and polluted my dynasty? Has a Kshatriya of high birth taken her away from my palace? Or has a Brahmana of high caste obtained the hand of my daughter? O my son, I would feel greatly happy if my daughter has been united with Partha, that best among men. Please tell me who has won the hand of my daughter. Are the sons of Pandu alive? Was it Arjuna who took up the bow and shot the mark?" Dristadumna then related all that he had seen during the night. He told his father, "From the conversation I can understand that they are not Shudras, Vaishyas, or Brahmanas, for their talk was only on military topics. Their voices were deep and commanding. They are definitely heroes of the highest order. It seems, O father, that our hopes have fructified. From the way in which the mark was shot down by the youth, and the strength with which the bow was strung by him, and the manner in which I have heard them talk with one another, I conclude that they are the sons of Pandu wandering in disguise." Drupad regained his hope that he had cherished in his heart. He sent his priest and other messengers to the potter's house to announce that the wedding would be that day, and that they would soon come to the palace. Drupad sent valuable dresses for Draupadi, and he also sent valuable clothes and ornaments for the 5 heroes, whom he hoped were the Pandavas. A royal chariot then arrived at the potter's house to take them to the palace. The Pandavas and their mother, as well as Draupadi, ascended the chariot and soon arrived at the palace of Drupad. Kunti, upon entering the palace, was taken away by the ladies of the king's household and worshipped according to her position. Draupadi went with her. The Pandavas then entered the palace, and Drupad saw those bulls among men, dressed in deerskin and walking with the gaits of lions. Each had broad shoulders and long arms extending to the knees. He could understand that they were of royal blood, and offered them the finest seats. He fed them with all the finest food, and after they were fully satisfied, addressed them in the following words. "Are we to know you as Kshatriyas or Brahmanas or demigods in disguise? Tell us the truth, for we have great doubts. Hearing your reply, I shall make arrangements for my daughter's wedding according to the order you belong." Hearing the words of King Drupad, Maharaj Yudhisthira answered, saying, "Do not be unhappy, O king. Your cherished desire has been fulfilled. We are Kshatriyas and the sons of Pandu. Know me to be the eldest of the sons of Pandu, Yudhisthira, and here is Bhima, by whose power all the Kshatriyas were defeated yesterday. Here is Arjuna, whose prowess with the bow and arrow has won the hand of your daughter. Here also are Nakula and Sahadev, and our mother Kunti. O foremost of kings, let the distress in your heart be driven away. Your daughter, O monarch, like a lotus flower, has been transferred from one lake to another. O king, you are our chief refuge and our worshipable superior." King Drupad's eyes rolled in ecstasy, and he almost lost consciousness. His voice was choked, and for a moment he could not reply to the statements of Yudhisthira. With great effort he inquired how they had escaped from the house of Lak. Yudhisthira related everything, and hearing what had happened, King Drupad condemned Dhritarashtra for his diplomacy. Maharaj Drupad then vowed to support Yudhisthira and help him regain his maternal throne. King Drupad was overjoyed that the Pandavas were now living in his kingdom, and then he ordered them, "Let the Kuru prince Sri Arjuna take according to Vedic injunctions the hand of my daughter on this auspicious day." Replying to the words of the king, Maharaj Yudhisthira said, "O great king, the Shastras declare that the oldest son must be married first." Maharaj Drupad replied, "If it pleases you, take the hand of my daughter yourself, or give Draupadi in marriage to whomever of your brothers you like." Yudhisthira then said, "Your daughter, O king, shall be the common wife of all of us. It has been ordered by our mother. This jewel of a daughter has been won by Arjuna. It is a standard rule amongst us that we enjoy equally what we obtain. That rule of conduct we shall not abandon. Draupadi shall become wedded to all of us." King Drupad was confused by the statements of Yudhisthira and spoke to him as follows. "O scion of the Kuru race, it has been declared that one man may have many wives, but it has never been heard of that one woman may have many husbands. O son of Kunti, you are conversant with the rules of morality and opposed to acts that are sinful. Please tell me, O prince, where this decision has come from." As they were discussing, the great Krishna Dvaipayana Vyasa appeared on the scene. He was given a proper reception in an elevated seat. Maharaj Drupada then addressed him. "Your presence is very much welcomed in my court. At this time there is something that is troubling us, and I am sure that you can settle the matter. Please tell me how one woman can become the wife of many men without being touched by sin." Wanting to speak with Drupada in private, Vyasa rose from his seat and took the monarch by the hand and led him away to his quarters. The others waited for the return of the great sage. Vyasa then explained that in Draupadi's previous birth she had prayed to Lord Shiva that she be given a husband accomplished in deeds. Since she asked Lord Shiva 5 times, Shiva appeared before her and gave her a benediction that she would have 5 husbands. Vyasa then informed King Drupada that the Pandavas in their previous births were demigods and eternal associates of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vyasadeva then granted divine vision to Drupada so that he could see who the Pandavas were in their previous lives. Drupada was then convinced that it was all the desire of higher authorities, and he agreed to the marriage proposal. The day the marriage ceremony took place, the moon had entered the constellation called Pusha. King Drupada planned a grand and opulent ceremony. The palace was decorated beautifully. Flags and festoons hung on the ceilings of the different rooms, and thousands of multicolored garlands were draped everywhere. The whole palace was alive with excitement, and people were moving here and there, making the necessary preparations. Domya, the priest of the Pandavas, lit the sacrificial fire with mantras recited from the Vedic literatures. He then called the Pandavas one by one and had them circumambulate the fire, each holding the hand of Draupadi. King Drupada then bestowed upon the Pandavas an opulent dowry consisting of 100 gold chariots, each drawn by magnificent horses with golden bridles. He also gave them 100 elephants endowed with auspicious marks. He gave jewels, gold, bedding, carpets, and maidservants. He gave all this out of affection for his beautiful daughter. After the marriage ceremony was over, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, sent to the Pandavas many presents, such as golden ornaments set with pearls and lapis lazuli, many beautiful and soft blankets, carpets, and golden chariots. He also gave them many well-trained elephants and many excellent horses. He also gave to them hundreds and thousands of gold coins and many precious jewels. Yudhisthira, feeling great devotion, accepted all those gifts from Lord Krishna, whom he always thought of in the core of his heart. Thus ends the 15th chapter of the Adi Parva to the summary study of the Mahabharata, entitled 2 Alliances Are Made. Arjuna said, "I will tell you. Arjuna has taken the dress of a sannyasi and is sitting in your garden. How is it that you have not recognized me so far?" Subhadra's face turned red and she looked down. She didn't know what to say. Arjuna explained that he was very attracted to her and wanted to marry her. She listened without speaking a word of reply and then went away to her chambers. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the supersoul of every living entity. He knew the inner desires of both of them, and thus he went to Arjuna and told him to kidnap her, as was customary amongst the Kshatriyas. Arjuna went to Vasudeva and Devaki and took their permission, and on the right day, when Subhadra was visiting the temples of the demigods, Arjuna grabbed her by force and took her to Indraprastha. Lord Krishna had given Arjuna his own chariot, which was drawn by his horses Saivya, Megapushpa, Sugriva, and Balahaka. After taking the beautiful Subhadra on his chariot, he headed in the direction of Indraprastha with the greatest speed. Everyone soon learned that the so-called sannyasi was Arjuna and that he had forcibly taken Subhadra away. Balaram was furious and wanted to kill Arjuna. Krishna came before him and pacified him. He said, "Do not be so angry, my dear brother. Let us consider what has happened. Subhadra has accompanied Arjuna willingly. In fact, she readied my chariot and horses and even drove the chariot for Arjuna. Surely she has chosen Arjuna as her lord. What better husband could we have chosen for our sister? He is the brightest jewel in the house of the Kurus. Our families are now closer allied. Let us go to Indraprastha and make peace with them." Balaram was convinced by the arguments of his brother, and his anger ceased. They all then made plans to attend the wedding ceremony of Arjuna and Subhadra in Indraprastha. Meanwhile, Arjuna reached the outskirts of Indraprastha. He thought of Draupadi and how she would be angry for what had happened. He told Subhadra, "Draupadi will be angry for what has happened. You must win her affection first. Go to her in the dress of a cowherd girl and say that you are her maidservant. Then tell her that you are Subhadra, the sister of Krishna. She will be charmed by you, and if she finds out later that I have married you, it will not matter." Subhadra followed Arjuna's instructions. Subhadra then went to the chambers of Draupadi in her simple cowherd dress. She offered obeisances to Draupadi and said, "I am the sister of Krishna, Subhadra. Please consider me your maidservant." Draupadi embraced her and blessed her with sweet words. "May you be the husband of a hero and the mother of a hero." They sat down and talked for hours about Krishna and Dwarka. There was a sudden commotion in the streets of Indraprastha. It was announced that Arjuna had arrived. The streets became crowded and everyone was overjoyed to see the return of their hero. They showered him with flowers and spoke of him in sweet words. He soon reached the palace and was greeted by his brothers. He went to Draupadi and inquired if she had heard any news. Draupadi said, "I have already met the cowherd girl. She is very beautiful and welcome in the palace." Within a few days, the Yadus headed by Krishna and Balaram entered the city of Indraprastha and were given a royal reception by the Pandavas and the citizens. Together they celebrated the marriage ceremony of Arjuna and Subhadra. Many costly presents were given by the Yadus and Vrishnis, and after enjoying the ceremony they went back to Dwarka city. However, Lord Krishna remained in the city of Indraprastha just to give his association to the Pandavas. Thus ends the 18th chapter of the Adi Parva to the summary study of the Mahabharata entitled Arjuna Goes on Pilgrimage. Chapter 19 of the Adi Parva, Devouring of the Khandava Forest. It was now the summertime, and the heat was unbearable. Arjuna went to Lord Krishna and said, "Dear Krishna, let us go to the bank of the Jamuna. We can spend the day there and come back in the evening." Lord Krishna welcomed the suggestion, and they made preparations to go to the Jamuna near the Khandava forest. The ladies, including Draupadi, Subhadra, and Satyabhama, also went on the excursion. They camped near the bank of that great river. Leaving the ladies in their tents, Lord Krishna and Arjuna rode in their chariots along the bank of the river. They saw the Khandava forest, which was so thick with trees that no sunlight could penetrate it. It was inhabited by fierce animals and was the home of the serpent king Takṣaśilā. The whole forest had a terrifying appearance to it. Lord Krishna and Arjuna sat on a fallen tree at the outskirts of the forest and began talking. While the two heroes were speaking, a certain Brahmana came to them. This Brahmana had a complexion like molten gold. His eyes and beard were both red. Lord Krishna and Arjuna stood up to offer respect to the Brahmana. They seated him and asked if there was anything they could do for him. The Brahmana said, "I know you, Lord Krishna, to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Arjuna to be his eternal companion. I am very hungry and I wish to satisfy my hunger." Arjuna said, "If you tell us what kind of food you desire, then we will try to satisfy you to the best of our ability." The Brahmana replied, "I do not eat ordinary food. Actually, I am Agni, the fire god. I have been waiting for a long time for both of you to come here. Previously, in a sacrifice to the demigods, I had eaten too much butter, and now I am suffering from sickness. The only cure is to devour this Khandava forest. However, every time I try to set it on fire, Indra comes and protects it by pouring water from the heavens. He has a friend living in the forest named Takṣaśilā, a certain king of the serpents whom he protects, and it is for this reason that I am not successful. I know that both of you are expert in the divine astras, and if you can ward off the rain, then I can be successful in devouring the forest." Upon hearing these words, Arjuna said, "It is a fact that Krishna and myself possess the divine astras. However, I do not own a suitable bow that is capable of bearing all of them. If I am to continue releasing arrows, I must also have a quiver of arrows that can never be exhausted. I also require a chariot that is comparable only to the sun, and fine white horses with the speed of the wind. Then also Krishna needs some weapon with which to kill the serpents and ghosts that inhabit this region. If you can supply us these necessities, then certainly we can help you." Thus addressed by Arjuna, the fire god Agni called for the demigod Varuna and spoke to him thus: "Here is Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and his companion Arjuna. They are in need of certain weapons. You have in your possession a divine bow given to you by Soma, and also 2 quivers of arrows that can never be exhausted. Please also supply the finest of chariots drawn by white horses. Please give these, for Arjuna is in need of them." Varuna replied, "These things that you asked for eternally belong to these 2 great heroes. Here is the celestial Gandiva bow along with 2 inexhaustible quivers of arrows. This bow is equal to 100,000 bows and is incapable of being destroyed by any weapon. This multicolored bow that resembles a rainbow will enhance your fame and achievements." After handing over that best of all weapons, Varuna then gave Arjuna a golden chariot drawn by 4 white horses obtained from the regions of the Gandharvas. This chariot was incapable of being destroyed by the celestial denizens or the asuras. It delighted the heart of anyone who saw it. Arjuna was overcome with gratitude. He offered obeisances to Agni and then forcibly strung that finest of bows. Whoever heard the twang of this bow was struck with fear. Varuna then gave to Lord Krishna the Sudarshan chakra. Varuna said, "Formerly, my dear Lord, this weapon belonged to you. It has been used to vanquish the demons and the asuras. I am returning it to you after a long time. Here also is your mace of the name Komodaki, which is capable of killing every demon on the earth or in the lower regions. Please use these weapons to again establish religious principles." Lord Krishna and Arjuna thanked Varuna and prepared to help Agni to devour the Khandava forest. Agni then began to devour the Khandava forest. The forest was surrounded on all sides by burning flames. All the living creatures in the forest were from the demoniac species, and as they came out of the forest to escape the flames, they were killed by the arrows of Lord Krishna and Arjuna. As the flames rose in the forest, they seemed to reach the sky, and the demigods became alarmed. Indra, upon seeing the forest being devoured by Agni, caused dark clouds to appear over the forest and pour torrents of rain. The water hit the fire, causing the forest to be filled with smoke, and the combination with flashes of lightning, the forest became terrible to behold. Then the son of Pandu, invoking his weapons, covered the entire forest with his innumerable arrows that were as thick as fog. It so happened that on that day, Takṣaśilā, the serpent king, was not in the forest. However, his son Ashvasena was present and tried to escape the fire, but could not get outside the network of Arjuna's arrows. Ashvasena, along with his mother, rose into the sky, and as they were making good their escape, Arjuna killed the mother. Indra saw all this, and desiring to save his friend's son, deprived Arjuna of his consciousness by a violent wind. While Arjuna was regaining his consciousness, the son of Takṣaśilā escaped. When Arjuna saw this, he became enraged and wanted to fight with the powerful Indra. He began to release thousands of arrows that filled the whole sky. Indra then produced fierce winds that roared loudly. Masses of clouds began to vomit thunder, and terrible flashes of lightning charged with thunderclaps were heard and seen in all directions. Arjuna then released the Vayavya weapon to disperse the clouds sent by Indra. When the clouds were destroyed, the sun appeared in the sky again. Gigantic birds then appeared and attacked Lord Krishna and Arjuna. Also innumerable nagas with faces emitting poison and fire attacked those 2 great heroes. Seeing them approaching, Arjuna cut them to pieces with his arrows. Deprived of their life, they fell into the fire below. Indra next sent asuras, Gandharvas, Yakshas, and Rakshasas, who roared loudly, causing the hearts of all to tremble. They showered upon Arjuna a perfect shower of arrows, but Partha struck off their heads with his own arrows. Indra, desirous of testing the strength of his son, caused a heavy shower of stones to fall upon Arjuna. Arjuna, however, destroyed that shower of stones. Indra then released a mountain weapon. Arjuna cut that mountain top into thousands of pieces, and it fell into the forest, causing great distress to the demons and Rakshasas living there. They rose up to escape, but were killed by the discus of Lord Krishna. When Indra and the demigods saw that Krishna and Arjuna could not be defeated, they glorified the prowess of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Suddenly, an unembodied voice from the heavens announced, "O Indra, your friend Takṣaśilā has not been slain. He has journeyed to Kurukshetra and is now staying there. It is impossible for you to defeat Krishna and Arjuna, for they are Narayan and Nara. Krishna is Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Arjuna is his pure servant. They are invincible in battle. They deserve the worship of all the demigods in heaven. You should therefore leave with a host of demigods. The destruction of the Khandava forest has been ordained by fate." Hearing these words, Indra, the destroyer of the Paka demon, left for his own abode, accompanied by the demigods. As the Khandava forest continued to blaze, an asura of the name Maya tried to escape from the abode of Takṣaśilā. He was chased by Agni as well as Lord Krishna, who was ready to kill him with his disc. Seeing his certain death, Maya ran to Arjuna for shelter. "Protect me, O Arjuna." Arjuna called out, "You need not fear for your life. You will not be harmed." Because the demon took shelter of Arjuna, Krishna and Agni desisted from chasing him. The fire continued to rage for hours until the whole forest was burnt to ashes. Then Agni came to Lord Krishna and Arjuna and thanked them for their help. Due to devouring the forest, his health was now restored. Lord Krishna and Arjuna then returned to their camp. Thus ends the 19th chapter of the Adi Parva to the summary study of the Mahabharata entitled The Burning of the Khandava Forest. Chapter 1 of the Shaba Parva. The demon Maya, Danava, builds an assembly house. Before Lord Krishna and Arjuna had gone a great distance, the demon Maya Danava fell at their feet and said, "You have granted me life, and I am very grateful to you. I am Maya Danava, the architect of the demons. I want to show my appreciation for your act of mercy." Since the demon was looking at Arjuna, Arjuna replied, "I do not want anything in return for what I have done. It is a principle of mine never to take anything for some good deed that I have performed. However, if you want to do something, then ask Krishna if there is something you can do for him." Lord Krishna is the origin of all incarnations. He is the original personality of Godhead, the master of the demigods. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 4.7, "Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chaduskritam dharma samstapanartaya sambhavami yuge yuge." In order to deliver the pious and to annihilate the miscreants, as well as to re-establish the principles of religion, I advent myself millennium after millennium. Before the appearance of Lord Krishna, Bhumi, the superintending deity of this universe, had complained about the unnecessary military forces on earth. The demigods headed by Lord Brahma then went to the ocean of milk to pray to Lord Vishnu. Kshirodakshay Vishnu answered the prayers of Brahma and appeared as the son of Devaki. Lord Krishna knows past, present, and future. He could foresee the battle of Kurukshetra and its outcome. He remembered how in Vaikuntha his two doorkeepers, Jai and Vijay, had been cursed by the four Kumaras to come to this material world. Jai and Vijay were to act as enemies of the Lord and give a chance to the Lord to exhibit his fighting tendency. The first birth of Jai and Vijay were Hiranyakasipu and Hiranyaksha. They were killed by the Lord in his incarnations as Lord Nrsingadev and Lord Varaha, respectively. In the next birth they were Ravana and Kumbhakarna, and they were killed by the Lord in his incarnation as Lord Ramachandra. Now they had taken birth as Shishupal and Dantavakra and were destined to be killed by Lord Krishna. Krishna decided that Shishupal should die in an assembly house constructed by the demon Maya. Lord Krishna thought deeply for a while and said, "You are the architect of the demons, and you can perform many wonderful feats. The Pandavas are very dear to me, and therefore I want you to build an assembly house for them that will excel all on earth." Mayadanava agreed, and then they headed toward Hastinapur. Upon reaching the palace, Arjuna related to Yudhisthira everything that had happened. Mayadanava was then introduced to King Yudhisthira, who welcomed him with great honors. Mayadanava greatly appreciated the humility of the king and thought he was a saint amongst the Kshatriyas. They then began discussions about the construction of the assembly hall. Mayadanava chose a plot of land that was 9,000 feet square. Now that Lord Krishna had lived in Hastinapur for some time, he desired to return to his own capital, Dwarka. The Pandavas were very reluctant to let him go. Yudhisthira said, "My lord, you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the brightest moon that guides our boat to safety. You have given us everything. How can we agree to your leaving us at this time? You are Hrishikesh, the master of our thoughts and actions. Please stay with us and always guide our thoughts and actions." Lord Krishna reassured Yudhisthira that he would return whenever they called for him. Lord Krishna then took leave of his Aunt Kunti, who affectionately smelt his head and embraced him. He then satisfied his sister Subhadra and bestowed upon her many blessings. Then Lord Keshava ascended his chariot, and Yudhisthira took up the reins. Arjuna and Bhima stood on either side of him and fanned him with chamravas. Nakula and Sahadev stood behind, holding the umbrella over the Lord of the universe. When the chariot had gone about 2 miles, Lord Krishna requested the Pandavas to return. Lord Krishna then affectionately bade farewell to the 5 brothers and started toward Dwarka. The Pandavas could not take their eyes away from the Supreme Person because of his exquisite beauty. Their eyes followed him a great distance until he could be seen no more. They were unsatiated at the sight of the Supreme Lord, and their minds accompanied him to the city of Dwarka. The Pandavas then returned to the city of Indraprastha, but they always contemplated the transcendental qualities and pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna. Mayadanava was busy with preparations for the building of the great Shaba. He approached Arjuna and said, "Near Mount Kailas there are many jewels that I have kept hidden. To the east of Mount Kailas there is also a lake called Bindu, in which there is a club that was thrown there by the king of the demons after killing his enemies. That club is equal in strength to 100,000 clubs. It is as fit a weapon for Bhima, even as the Gandiva is for you. There is also in that lake a large conch shell named Devadatta that belongs to Varuna. The blast of that conch shell can be heard in all directions. I will bring that for you." Maya then took leave of Arjuna and went to Mount Kailas. Mayadanava searched for his great quantity of jewels and found them. He also entered Lake Bindu and found the powerful club and the conch shell Devadatta. He took those back to Indraprastha and presented the club to Bhimasena and the conch shell to Arjuna. The sound of this conch shell could break the heart of any opponent. Maya then began construction of the great assembly house. It took him a full 14 months, but it was indeed beautiful. The columns were golden and gave off an effulgence of light like the sun itself. The walls were embedded with thousands of jewels, and the effulgence of the gems lit the entire palace. Within the palace were water tanks filled with lotuses, whose leaves resembled dark-colored gems, and whose stalks were made of jewels. There were also other flowers with golden leaves. The water was crystal clear and filled with a variety of fishes and tortoises of a golden hue. The pond was surrounded by a flight of crystal stairs, and it was difficult to understand where was water and where was land. Flowers inside and outside the palace bloomed in all seasons and were of the finest variety. When the palace was completed, Mayadanava informed Maharaj Yudhisthira, and a great festival was planned. Thousands of brahmanas came and invoked auspiciousness by chanting the Vedic hymns. Maharaj Yudhisthira gave thousands of cows away in charity and fed the brahmanas sumptuously. He then entered this most opulent assembly house accompanied by his brothers. Kings and sages from every country came to see the wonderful Shaba, and upon seeing it they were struck with wonder. The fame of the assembly hall built by Maya spread far and wide, and even the demigods came to see it. Some of the princes who came to see the beautiful assembly hall stayed in Indraprastha for some time to learn the science of archery from Arjuna. Chief amongst these princes was Satyaki, or Yuyudan. He was a cousin of Lord Krishna. This was a happy time for the Pandavas, but it was like a lull before the storm. They were destined to enjoy their kingdom only for a few months more. During this time, Subhadra gave birth to a son named Abhimanyu. He was born with many auspicious marks. The astrologers foretold that he would be a great warrior and add fame to the Pandava dynasty. Draupadi also gave birth to a child by each of her husbands. From Yudhisthira, Prativindya took birth, and Bhima's son was Shuta-Shoma. Arjuna's son was Shuta-Karman, Nakula's son was Shatanika, and Sahadev's son was Shuta-Sen. The sons grew up with the good qualities of their fathers, and all became accomplished in the science of weapons. One day, while the Pandavas were sitting in their assembly house, the great rishi Narada Muni came to see them. The Pandavas stood up in great excitement and offered their respects to the great sage. They seated him properly and washed his feet. They then offered him all kinds of presentations for his pleasure. Narada Muni was then shown the assembly hall by Maharaj Yudhisthira, and Narada appreciated the wonderful workmanship. When Narada was again seated, he began to inquire from the great sage in the following words. My dear Lord, you have traveled through the 3 worlds, and seen many beautiful assembly halls like the one I have. Can you tell me about them? Narada smiled and said, Yes, I have seen all the great Shabas of the universe, and I will tell you about them. However, I have never seen an assembly hall anywhere that was built of precious stones and jewels. This Shaba defeats the beauty of the Sudharma assembly house in the heavenly planets. Narada then described the different assembly houses, such as Indra's and Yamaraj's. He told Maharaj Yudhisthira that in the assembly house of Yamaraj there were many kings from the Kuru house, such as Pandu and others. Narada then went on to describe the assembly house of Varuna and Kuvera. When the narration was finished, the hall was silent. Narada waited for Yudhisthira to speak. Yudhisthira said, My lord, I have been listening to all that you have spoken, and I have noticed one thing. Most of the kings who were lords of this earth are in the assembly hall of Yamaraj, and not Indra. Even my father, the great Pandu, was not in Indra's abode, as I was thinking all these years. I have heard from you that Harishchandra, the solar dynasty, is sitting on the throne of Indra. What pious activities did Harishchandra perform that my father did not? My father was the purest of men and never spoke a word of untruth. He was a saint amongst the kingly order. Please tell me why my father is also not in the abode of Indra. Narada, who had come just to explain this point, said, Certainly I will tell you. The great Harishchandra was the son of Trishanku, the favorite of the sage Vyasadeva. Harishchandra was a powerful king and had conquered all the kingdoms of the earth. Because of his strength, he was able to perform the Rajasuya sacrifice. For this reason, he is able to share the same throne with Indra. The king who performs the Rajasuya sacrifice receives great benefit in the heavenly realm. While I was in Yamaraj's abode, I met your father. He told me, My sons have become powerful on earth. If Yudhisthira performs the Rajasuya, I will be transferred to Indraloka, and also his fame will be spread far and wide. This was the desire of your father. With your 4 brothers to help you, and with Lord Krishna on your side, it will be easy for you to perform the Rajasuya. You will be able to conquer the entire world. It is not an easy task, but I know that you are capable of it. Reflecting on this, do as you think fit. I will go to the city of Dwarka and request Lord Krishna to help you. Narada Muni then left Indraprastha by the airways, constantly chanting the glories of Lord Krishna. Thus ends the first chapter of the Shava Parva to the summary study of the Mahabharata entitled, The Demon Mayadanava Builds an Assembly House.